It's time for us to go way back to the glory days. 16 bits of glory days. So let's cut a hole in those glory days and list our favorite 16-bit games this week on Nothing Good.
August 14th, 2021. May 24th, 2002. 9 months and 1 week. 47 unique topics. Dozens and dozens of inappropriate jokes.
There's more than that.
80 hours and 7 minutes of premium lowbrow content. And for the first time ever, on Nothing Good, there's some fucking class. Because today, we are joined by the fantastic, the friendly, the talented, the intelligent, the famous, the infamous Mrs. Brown. Marielle, how you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This is exciting. It's always fun when we have a guest, but it's also more fun when we have a husband and wife here.
Yes. This is a first. This is such a big deal.
Hi.
What are the odds that they don't sleep in the same room tonight after this is over?
As the episode goes.
Well, a topic like this, I feel like that's hard.
Yeah.
That's difficult to do. This shouldn't be very divisive.
First of all, you don't know how strongly she feels about Altered Beast, because this could get real off real fast.
Yeah.
Listen,
Like,
you make one comment about Jigglypuff, and Marielle's going to cut a bitch.
She will. She will. But fortunately, the Game Boy episode is another day. But today, I want to start things off by welcoming you to the show. Honey.
Hi.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm good.
She has no idea what she's gotten herself
She
into
does not.
by signing up for this.
Dear sweet, succulent, savory, supple listener, my wife is joining us today for this episode and has no idea. You know, you've listened before, but she has made it a point not to listen. In fact, the only thing she's listened to at any kind of length was the Longfellow Westwich.
That's not a good metric. That's not a good.
And she made me turn it off, or else she'd start Googling divorce lawyers in our area. I wonder honestly though, like for our first sidebar, if being married to me, you know how like some people get that banner hot singles in your area? If she gets divorce lawyers in your area, it gets up and flashes at her. But welcome to the show. We always kind of generally welcome new people to the show with a couple of questions, and I'm gonna keep it easy on you. Is that okay if you do that with us today?
Well, I don't believe you, but okay.
Okay, so if you were an animal, could be any animal, what animal would you be?
Seahorse.
A seahorse. Now, would that be a slutty seahorse?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you would be.
Hey, well,
I think the ice has been broken.
Yeah, I mean, do we need any more questions?
No. My wife, the slutty seahorse.
Slutty seahorse.
I love it. Well, speaking of total sluts, we're total sluts for 16-bit games. The Genesis, the Super Nintendo, and to a far lesser extent, the TurboGrafx 16.
we don't talk about that.
No,
But don't talk about that.
we don't talk about the TurboGrafx 16. But before we get going with the list, gents, how are we today?
I'm good, man.
Fantastic.
I'm just excited to be here.
Good. We're outside on a rainy, late spring day, enjoying some fresh air and some fresh beverages.
Yes.
What are we drinking? Doc.
So during the Undertaker episode, I originally planned on having the Ghost Cowboy by I'm not even sure who makes it, by Hop Farm Brewing Company, and we didn't get around to it because we were drinking other things. But tonight I'm drinking Ghost Cowboy, and it's not that awesome, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's okay.
The label art is awesome.
That's honestly, the label's
Not so
fantastic. It's serviceable. It'll do its job. Jeff?
All right, I am drinking a Black Clouds Breakfast Stout from Dancing Gnome in Sharpsburg. Black Clouds is their series of stouts that they make. The breakfast version has coffee and maple syrup in it. It's very strong. It's very thick. It's 12%. So in an hour or so, I'm going to be pretty well on my way to being drunk.
Very nice. Very nice. I'll step in here. I'm drinking a Tropical Bitch IPA from Flying Dog because, damn it, I feel like a tropical bitch today. And here we are. Now, I'm going to send it over all the way down to Tampa, Florida, where the Mac Attack is drinking what he's drinking. Mac, what are you drinking down there in Florida besides meth and disappointment?
Greetings from the Sunshine State, dear, sweet, succulent listener. First off, guys, I am that much closer to Peru.
You are.
This is as
Don't
close as Nothing Good has gotten to our dear, sweet, succulent listeners ever, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to know that I'm just a hop, skip, and several meth head jumping away from getting to Peru. Gentlemen, because I am kicking it here in the beautiful Holiday Inn by the St. Pete Airport, nothing but the best for me here. Corona, living the high life.
Very nice.
So, La Cerveza Más Fina.
There you go.
Very nice. In the whitest way that's ever been read in human history.
Yeah.
And then rounding it off.
I have gotten, and this is no exaggeration, I have got 9 hours of sleep in the last 4 days. So God only knows where my brain is when this whole thing's going to go off and what's going to come out of my mouth. I think it's going to be funny. It's probably going to be exactly the opposite of that. So this will be a nice social experiment as to why sleep deprivation isn't exactly a great thing.
We promise to tell you if your joke isn't funny, but we will not tell you if it is. Just to keep you on your toes.
No, I look forward to just having you guys blankly stare through the camera at me when I know the joke's not funny. So that'll be real good.
It'll be good. And last, Marielle. I know you're not imbibing with us this evening. One of us must remain responsible and alert. But what are you drinking today?
Free Coca-Cola.
Fucking don't seem too excited about it.
I mean, is anybody in the history of mankind ever been excited about having free Coke?
Well, fucking find a way.
Yeah.
Come on.
At
I
least
figured
make
you
it
weren't gonna
sound
ask.
exciting.
No.
We
It's
always
like
ask.
caffeine-free Coke. Fuck.
Didn't know I was going to be put on the spot, okay, guys?
I expect more out of a slutty seahorse. And I want to see you bring more into the second half of the show. But speaking of bringing more, let's bring forward some of this list. So we were tasked on today's episode to discuss for the unfortunate people that listen to our comic book movie episode, we're fond of this top 5 with an honorable mention format. And there are turkeys, by the way.
Okay.
They also have an opinion about 16-bit games.
They like the TurboGrafx 16.
They do.
Yeah.
Fuck you. There we go. There was part. Oh, we're gonna get into it, turkey. We're gonna get into it.
Okay.
But digress, and so we're gonna all go through list our honorable mentions from 5 down to 1 to say how we feel about it, make fun of each other, standard, fair, and
I'm going to use the term you use when we talked about top comic book movies. Via text, you said, and we'll get to motherfuck each other. And I don't know why that stuck with me. It'll never leave my brain, because it's like, that's about right.
let the motherfucker commence. Doc,
Yeah.
what is your honorable mention for
All right.
top 16-bit games?
So, behind the scenes look for the audience here. So what we did was we messaged each other the different games, but out of order. So
Yes.
like we could, if there's a game you never heard of, you can kind of take a look at it on YouTube, get familiar with it. And thankfully, most of the game is short of a couple I'd never really played or heard of before. That's mostly because, and you'll see through my list that almost every game is a Sega Genesis game, because I didn't get a Super Nintendo until well towards the end of the 16-bit era. It was like, I had a Sega Genesis in my room. My sister was super jealous for years, but she didn't really game anyhow. But she was just jealous because I had something and she didn't. So eventually my parents broke in 1990, I'd say 5 or 6, like way late. They got a Super Nintendo.
It is.
And it went to her room, But, newsflash, I played it almost all the time anyhow.
Yeah.
But, so most of the games are not, only one is a Super Nintendo game. Alright, so honorable mention, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Noah. So my honorable mention is Toe Jam and Earl, Panic on Funkatron. Now, okay, so I don't want to get into the other parts of Toe Jam and Earl, but I don't have a lot of fond memories of the original. I think I played it twice. I rented it, and that was it. So I didn't really have a lot of experience with it. But then I saw this one, graphically superior.
It is.
And I'm a child of Sonic the Hedgehog, right? So a side-scrolling thing that did it for me.
Works out.
I don't know if you guys have gone back and looked at Panic on Funkatron lately, but you know what? It was actually a pretty creative game.
Oh, super cool.
And it's weird, like, you take things for granted when you're a kid. You're like, oh, this is cool, it's whatever. But then, like, 20, 30 years later, and then gaming has changed so drastically, and you look at what that game was actually kind of doing, it's kind of clever. Like, the graphics were unique, and like, the scanning mode where, like, your squiggly lines, and just really cool animations, searching out the stupid humans and all that stuff. But the game was fun. I don't think I ever beat the game. It was one of those games that I owned, and I just played halfway through, got bored with it, and just turned it off and come back and play it again.
Yeah.
But enough of that. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this conversation. Number 5, and it's a tough number 5, but Earthworm Gym 2. Earthworm Gym is my jam. It's just, graphically, I thought it was so cool. I still think it's so cool. You ever played Earthworm Gym?
I think so.
It's good stuff. I mean, it was great comedy, the theme, the vibe, the platforming, the controls, everything about it was great, but more than anything else, it was the vibe of it. Kind of like Toe Jam and Earl had a vibe to it.
The absurdity of it is what
the
sold it.
absurdity.
It's so comical
It
of a
was
game.
so fun.
And there was never really anything quite like it.
No.
I mean, it was there's a lot of stuff in that game that makes very little to no sense and having any right to be in a video game. And that series, I still to this day think it's the most clever video game in terms of theme and humor and content that I've ever played. It's one of those games that I've always wished would kind of get a modern day update. That, somebody would go ahead and say, in today's day and age, let's go ahead and make a new Earthworm Gym game. Whether you update the graphics to, today by utilizing Unreal Engine, or if you just go ahead and, like a lot of companies have been doing, make it a 16-bit side scroller, but with, better graphics and, different levels of gameplay.
I agree. And I don't know the different experiences you guys had with that, but the game was difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Not easy.
That was back in the day, man, like, where games were notoriously hard to beat. Just levels. There's a level, and tell me if I'm making this up. I swear there's a level where you have to be a cow. Is there a level where you have to be a cow in that game?
There's a lot
You
of
have to
cows
launch the
throughout
cow.
Does it even launch the cow?
One of the early levels.
Well, no, that's Earthworm Gym 1.
That
You
one.
launch the cow out of... and you launch it at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
And
Level
at
1.
the very end,
Yeah.
it shows
Comes
back
back.
up in, like, the deciding moment, which is cool.
You'll
But
appreciate
there is... It's like, that's like the cow thing was a mini game in Earthworm Gym 2. It happens twice in the game.
Okay.
It's like very similar to the special levels in Sonic, where you're getting...
Yes.
Very similar to that, but it's hilarious and
I
random
think
noises.
my first experience with the Earthworm Gym franchise, and you'll appreciate this, Noah, was
Yeah. How can I
Right,
say
man?
it? Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
Blockbuster.
Oh no, that's not what I thought you were gonna say.
Okay.
I thought you were
What
gonna
did you
say.
think he was
What were
going to
you
say?
I thought you were gonna say the words that our listeners have been waiting for you to say.
Sega Channel.
Oh.
Your mistress. Your forbidden...
Oh. Yeah, that's definitely what I was gonna say. But yeah, so Earthworm Gym is definitely like a number 5. It's a solid game, and Jeff and I were talking about this before we started recording. It's tough work to make. Like, there's so many games. There's like between Sega and Super Nintendo in North America alone, there's like 1,400 games that were released.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's a
And
lot.
how many games did you play versus how many that you never played, never even heard of?
You wanted to.
Yeah. So number 4.
Oh, wait, no. I want to go around.
Oh.
I don't want to go down, top down.
Oh. I
No.
thought we were going straight through our list.
No.
Oh.
I'm
We're
motherfucking you right now.
We're changing it. I thought, man,
Okay.
changing up the format.
No, format for I don't know how long ago that you guys thought this episode happened, because we did record it a lot earlier than we released it, but we went around the table.
I have no
On
recollection of
three
doing
rounds.
that.
We'll do it.
I'm down.
For each round.
All right.
So
good. This is
then
different.
that means
Then now we're going to turn to our special guest.
yes.
So I have to start with my honorable mention.
And then you're number 5, because now Doc has set a weird precedent.
What? What did I say?
So, Marielle, hi. How are you
Hi.
feeling?
I'm good.
That's nice. What's your honorable mention?
I have to have 2 honorable mentions
Oh.
because I couldn't decide between them.
It's against the
So,
rules.
I'm sorry.
But
Against
we'll allow
say
it
tie.
because you're a guest.
That's right.
Proceed.
Final Fantasy II and Mario Paint.
I knew it!
There it is.
He really
There it
did say
is.
that Mario
I
Paint would be on
spent
the
a lot of
necessary-
I bet
time
it
on
not.
that game.
Like, I don't know who was going to collect if I was wrong, but I bet one of my nuts that you were going to say Mario Paint.
I spent a significant amount of time
Marielle,
on
he
both
did.
of
It
those
was the
games.
left one.
What?
I bet the left nut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mario
That
Paint
means-
is
yes.
because you spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
And why Final Fantasy 2?
So I just spent a lot of time on that one too. But I don't know if that they're my favorite or that.
Well, that's why
Give
the
me-
honorable mention.
Yeah.
Mario
that's
Paint
why I
was
think
such
they're-
a unique experience because that's what it was. It wasn't really.
You had to have a
game?
mouse, which was weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I did not have Mario Paint growing up, but when my wife and I got together, she had Mario Paint. So I got to experience it as an adult, and I would not put it on my list for sure. But honorable mention is okay.
Oh my
Oh.
god, I forgot about the mouse.
A lot, really, when you think about it, and this is for our creative engineers out there, Mario Paint is like most people's first experience with a DAW or recording software. Because when you got to the music,
You could do
you were like
music, yeah.
sequencing music and MIDI,
Yeah.
and it was incredibly impressive for the time that you did this all on a Super Nintendo cartridge.
You could make animation, and then I would put the music with the animation, and
It was a
fun.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So, speaking of whole things, emphasis on the whole. What is your number 5?
Aladdin was my number 5.
No, which version of Aladdin?
The SNES.
Yes, NES.
Yes.
Because that is the superior version.
It's also the easier one.
Was it the easier one?
I think so. The Genesis one, the flying carpet level, was extremely hard.
But Aladdin.
Yeah.
And any other
It's
reasons?
my number 5. It's just good.
That was great graphics.
It's a great game.
Oh,
I was
game
able. It was
gorgeous.
beatable, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. It was between that and the Lion King because I played that a lot, but Lion King was never beatable for me. It
I never played Lion
Well-
King on.
was very
that's-
frustrating.
Like, the people who know Dark Souls and think Dark Souls or Elden Ring is so fucking hard have never tried the Lion King.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we went back as adults, what, like 2 weeks ago, or no, 2 months ago, and tried to
Oh, yeah.
tried to be Lion King. And
That game assaulted us. It, like, did things to us that I'm going to be unpacking
Yeah.
in
That
therapy
game
for
is
years.
extremely difficult.
but Aladdin, I thought was more fun. The genie level was especially fun.
Matt,
Yeah, did you get it the recent release for like the Nintendo Switch where you get Aladdin and the Lion
Yes.
King? Yeah, I
Yes.
did. I have seen that, and I've been very tempted to pick that up and play it again. I did want to say, because you mentioned with Mario Paint, that one of the things that I remember most about that game, exactly what you said, Noah, was the first time really kind of like mixing music and knowing nothing about music, the complete insanity that we would come up with and play super fast and just laugh hysterically at how it played out was my favorite. What's one of my memories of that game. A friend of mine growing up, his name was Gino Fazio. We used to always go up to his house and he had that. We would do that all the time and just try to like pretend like we were musicians and come up with just the most ridiculous stuff. So I do have good memories of Mario Paint because of that, but I would absolutely never put that on my list.
Never put on the list.
very, very nice. I will go in, since we'll just kind of keep this going in the order here on the table. I will hop in next and say that my honorable mention is a game called Joe Montana's Sports Talk Football 1992. Mostly because, honestly, that was for the Genesis, and it was one of the first really kind of taking it from a top-down Tecmo Bowl kind of a game for the football franchise into the full big player sprites. But I played that game with my dad and my Uncle Dan like all the time. We played that all the time. And that was the game that we started, and I used to be a little kid and pout when my father would beat the shit out of me in a game, and he'd rub it in, and then by the end of that game, it was a pretty fair fight.
Yeah.
It was a pretty fair fight. So honorable mention, without a shadow of a doubt, goes to Joe Montana Sports Talk Football 1992 for the Genesis. But my number 5, maybe this is a little high on people's list, maybe it's a little low, but my number 5 game of the 16-bit generation is the original Mario Kart. It's a classic in every possible way. I got so much love for the Mario Kart. I, to this day, think that the original Mario Kart is the weakest Mario Kart of all the games. But that's not a knock on the system at all, because you can still sit down and play.
Yeah, it set the precedent for all the Mario Karts that came after it, and it ruined so many friendships and relationships.
Oh my god!
But it was so worth it.
To this day, if my wife and I are playing any Mario Kart and one of us red shells the other one, it's like you might have just slept with a neighbor, and it might have been a less detrimental offense. Just I mean, at least use protection, and of course, I mean the 3 green shells around. You know,
yeah, of course,
if you're gonna do that. But yeah, Mario Kart, classic game, SNES.
Good one.
I don't know anyone who's not at least played it, or at least aware of its existence. You know, so like, there's a lot of games where we might mention, someone's like, oh, I never heard of that game. Everyone knows what fucking Mario Kart is.
Never played it on Super Nintendo.
You never played the original?
I didn't start playing
Really?
Mario Kart until Nintendo 64.
Okay.
That was...
Well, we'll have to
I had very few Super Nintendo games.
we'll have to fire it up sometime so you can see it. Like, give like a virgin playthrough of the
Oh my
original
God.
Mario Kart.
Yeah.
As a grown ass man. Speaking of grown ass men, all the way down in God's asshole, Florida, it's Mac. Mac, what's your honorable mention?
So first off, in God's asshole, it was a balmy, humid 96 degrees today.
Ooh.
Now, dear sweet listeners, for those of you who know me, know what happens when I'm in anything that is in 80-degree weather. Compound that to being 96-degree weather, walking around all day long. The Everglades isn't the only swamp that was brewing in Florida, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just go ahead and point that out. It was moist in every area. So, you know, mull that one over there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for that, painting that vivid
Nice
picture.
visual.
Yeah, so now Peru knows about your swamp ass.
Well, yeah. Oh, it's swamp everything. You know, I'm a big man right now, man. There's crevices all over, Jones.
God damn it, Dave.
So listen.
Beautiful. Let's get to your list.
Now, because Marielle had 2 honorable mentions, I've got 14. So let's go ahead and start at the top. My 14th honorable mention. No, I'm just kidding. So
You would too.
Yeah, I thought
That's
you were
the thing.
serious.
I thought he was
He's-
serious.
He's like, they're in Florida. They can't fucking hit me.
not this time. So, you know, the 16-bit generation, I think probably more than anything was really my generation of video games. Like, I just think that's where I think I just really it's hard to say. I don't want to say that I enjoyed it more, but I just think at that age, it just meant something, right? So I was very fortunate growing up to be in a household that had both Super Nintendo and Sega. I had more access to the Super Nintendo. The Sega was really my brother's, but you know, we played and mostly fought through a great many games. Now, a lot of people that know me would say it honorable mention. I should throw out NHL '94, and I just think that would be almost too easy. So I actually didn't have that making my list. A lot of the NHL games kind of ran together for me. So my honorable mention here, everybody, was Jurassic Park for the Sega Genesis. So
I got feelings.
and listen, it is not. It was not necessarily the greatest game in the world to play. That game certainly came out at a time when I was, very much into that movie. I think I saw that movie 9 times over the summer, so getting the game was kind of like a natural thing to do. Mm-hmm. But there's one very particular reason why I have that as my honorable mention, and it's the fact that you get to play that game as a fucking velociraptor. That is the reason why that makes honorable mention. Because that game, especially, and I don't know how it was for the Super Nintendo, but I know for the Sega for sure, you had the 2 gameplays. You could play as Alan Grant, or you could play as the Velociraptor. And it was just so much fun as the Velociraptor going around and just fucking eating everybody, So that was why I had that crack, the swamp ass crack, if you will, of the top 6 as my honorable mention.
I'm going to just interject real quick because I have a fucking issue with Jurassic Park for Sega Genesis. Excuse the French.
Sounded like
fuck
perfect
the
English
French.
to me,
Oh.
Jones.
So I don't know if all you guys played this game.
I didn't.
I did not.
forgot
Oh,
this
I
game
did.
even-
I
I
own that
forgot
game.
it even existed
So,
until I saw it on
I still
Mac's
have mine.
list.
I feel like the game itself was fine. It wasn't fun. It was not a fun game. But I have a problem because I had an awful experience with it at the end of the Velociraptor playthrough. Because as a small child, I was an idiot and couldn't figure things out.
Yeah.
And I sat, and I can't tell you how long ago it was now, but it feels like it took a couple of weeks of screwing around before I realized how you could beat the game. Because the last level is like the T-Rex exhibit.
Yeah.
And you're the raptor, and you're like running around, and Grant's up there, and he's throwing things at you and zapping you, whatever he's doing, and you can't hit him. So in my mind, my goal is to kill him, because I'm a raptor. That's my job. But you can't. And I didn't realize you couldn't for a long time, and I was so frustrated that I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And so I accidentally beat the game. I was just swiping at things, and I knocked over the display, and I went, that's it?
Yeah.
That's what I'm supposed to do? I was so furious. As like an 11-year-old, I wanted to kick everything, punch everybody in the face.
He has
Screw
hated
that game.
dinosaurs ever since.
I hate that game because of that. Sorry, I'm
no,
done.
yeah, the ending. No, that game was super fun up until the point where you are climbing through the tunnels right before, as the human, as Dr. Grant, for the very last level, and then it is frustrating and disappointing. And if you're Grant, you definitely don't have enough grenades for the last level of that game.
No.
So, I feel you on that. Now, Mac, Mario, did you have Jurassic Park?
I did not.
Did you play Jurassic Park?
I did not.
Have you seen Jurassic Park?
The movie, not the game.
Yes, the movie.
Yes.
What's your favorite dinosaur in that movie?
The T-Rex.
Would you have sex with the T-Rex?
No.
Have you had
What's
sex
wrong
with the
with
T-Rex?
you?
Welcome to the show.
What,
Oh my god.
This is pretty normal.
what if the T-Rex? What if he walked into like your
I
house
am
one
your
day?
wife.
That's why I don't feel bad about this.
He's somehow working towards a three-way with a dinosaur.
Okay.
I mean, really, it's got those little arms, so it's really the position's limited. You got to work with him. You can't be selfish. Okay, we'll talk about this stuff.
You can't
We'll
be
just unpack this
selfish.
later in therapy. Mac, number 5.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Number 5. So to me, this was the pinnacle of the two-dimensional fighting games. It was the ultimate version of it. It had all the characters and more. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ultimate MK3 for the Sega Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Now,
nice.
at this point in time with Ultimate MK3, the Sega Genesis came out with a new set of controllers that had 6 buttons. It had the ABC like the Sega typically did, and then it had a second level right above it of XYZ. Now, when you're playing that Mortal Kombat game, and the thing that I love most about that game was, and partially why I really played it for Sega, was because the game engine for Sega just played things faster. So you could fuck somebody's day up so hard if you had the right combo with the right character. And growing up, I was not better at video games than my brother. Just wasn't possible. We would have very competitive games playing Sega hockey, but as I look back in life, I think to myself, that son of a bitch was toying with me for most of the time. And those times where he messed up and we fought and the game got shut off all aside. But in Mortal Kombat 3, in particular Ultimate MK3, I owned that motherfucker. I owned him like no one's fucking business. And my character was Cabal.
Cabal was the jam, man.
And his speed dash, which would spin you around like a top, whether you're on the ground or in midair. I had I think it was like a 9-hit 40% combo that I would land. And then after I finished the combo, if I hit the speed dash again, I could hit you before you even hit the ground and take another 40%. So when I played my brother in that game, if I got off to a good start, his character was down 80% before he can even get a hit in. But I just thought the playability of that game was fun. The characters in that game were fun. And I just really enjoyed it. The NHL games I probably played the most, but I think I probably had the most fun playing that game the most. And yeah, definitely one of my favorites growing up for sure. Still one that I'll play today. I suck at the arcade version of it, but man, I'll toss that in the Sega.
I was a real big fan of the Mortal Kombat franchise in general. I mean, honestly, I owned every Mortal Kombat game on Sega that was released on Sega for sure. I it's probably, it's not on my list. I feel like maybe it should be, but there's a better fighting game in its place, in my opinion. But I think Mortal Kombat was just such a fun experience. There was a sense of mastery to it, you know, and it had been, by Ultimate, I mean, it had been around for so long, there was actual lore and history, there was some attachment you had to the characters. Everybody had their favorite character.
The first Mortal Kombat had more of a shock value because it was something that we had never experienced before in terms of the violence and the gore and the fatalities. But by the time we got to MK3, everybody was pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So it was more focused on the story and sort of the environment or the story of Mortal Kombat as opposed to just I'm gonna.
Well, in that game too,
Exactly.
you had your character had 2 fatalities that the character could do. You had the friendship, which fuck that. You know, I was more insulted if I ever got a friendship than anything else playing against anyone. But you're right. I mean, that was kind of that was the end of that story of Mortal Kombat that I kind of considered that traditional Mortal Kombat before you started bringing all sorts of other weird characters. My question here for the table, and if you guys want to go around, you're certainly welcome to. Who was your character in Mortal Kombat? It was the character that was your favorite that you mastered in the game. I know we talked about this in the Mortal Kombat movie episode, but you know I think it's worth bringing up again since we're talking about the game.
Yeah, mine was Jax.
It's a hard tie for me between Cabal and Reptile. And I have a special place in my heart for Reptile because back in the OG Mortal Kombat, gamers will remember that Reptile was like a secret character in the first Mortal Kombat. That was forever ago. And there was a way to, I don't know if it was like a debug mode, a way to like get a code in to get the Reptile Sonya in the pit, if I remember correctly as well. That's going way back. Marielle, did you frequent any Mortal Kombat back in the day?
A little bit. Genesis for me was weird because we didn't have one at first. We had the Super Nintendo first, and I played it at my sister's house. So it was sort of like here and there.
Yeah.
So I'd play it. I feel like Raiden.
That's a good call.
I feel like that was my go-to.
That's a good call.
At some time I knew fatalities from just
The
whatever
easiest
magazine
fatality.
that I would pick up to look at.
Always remember the easiest ones. Liu Kang's. You hold start, block, and do a rotation once, and you would do like the spin uppercut. Who was your go-to in Mortal Kombat? Ultimate specifically.
Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Cyrax.
There you go.
Cyrax was my guy. I thought Mortal Kombat 2 was cool. I really liked Mortal Kombat 2 and Baraka and like how they took the dark, made it even darker somehow.
Yeah.
But Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, dude, like they added so many characters and so much content, so much depth to like the world of the game, and I still think it stands alone as the best Mortal Kombat game, like hands down. I like Cabal as far as the hooks. I know that's one of Dave's guys, Cabal, and you know, you're gonna love mid '90s to be Striker and just get some good old fashioned 3 different cops for police brutality right in there.
Yeah.
And there's a Native American character, so you could just, you know, get that going on. Thank you, white America. But no, ultimately, to answer your question, Cyrax.
Before we move on to Jeff, real quick, I have a question.
Yeah.
Lightning round. Mortal Kombat 1 Blood Code.
Up, down, down, ABB. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I was
ABB.
I was doing the Contra code. My
You really did.
I do remember that.
You
the Contra
failed,
code.
sir. You failed.
So
That's all right.
that actually became, you know, it obviously was the Contra code, but Konami put that code in a lot of games moving forward. If you do that code in Gradius 3, another great 16-bit game, you kind of got to bypass all of the upgrades and got everything that you needed for your ship at level 1. But if you did it wrong when you were doing it in the game, it blew your ship up and the game was over and you had to start over.
Oh.
That's a game I played and did not know that. So that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, if you go into Gradius 3 and you do the up, down, down, left, right. But remember, in the Super Nintendo, you had the left, right. You have to hit I think for the code, you have to hit the buttons at the top of the controller, not left, right on the gamepad. So that was kind of the little trick to that. But that was always kind of really cool.
Jeff, where you at?
Yeah, so putting this list together was pretty fun for me going back, being a kid of the 80s and the 90s. You know, we had 10 years of 16-bit consoles from the time the Genesis came out to when both systems were discontinued in 1999. So, as Jones mentioned, there were a ton of games a lot that we didn't play. But narrowing it down to one honorable mention, we were lucky enough to have both systems in our house. We received the Super Nintendo as a gift, and me and my brothers pooled all of our money together to buy a Sega Genesis. So we had both. But everybody who has listened to this podcast in the past and who will listen to this podcast in the future know that I'm a big whore for Nintendo.
Yes, you are
A huge
Nintendo
whore,
whore.
like
I
the
love it.
sluggish
Yeah.
Nintendo whore. So I would be remiss if I did not include a Mario game on my list. Although it didn't make the top 5, I'll list it as an honorable mention. My favorite 16-bit Mario game, Super Mario RPG.
Legend of the Seven Stars. man.
Non-traditional. It was a collaboration between Nintendo and Square. At the time, Square was making some killer RPG games.
Yeah.
The problem was they weren't selling well in the U.S. So they're like, how can we crack into the U.S. market? Even though, there's already Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3, and Chrono Trigger, and a number of other games. They're like, how can we crack into the market? So they partnered with Nintendo and said, hey, why don't we make a Mario version of this? And initially they wanted to make like a classic RPG with just Mario thrown in there with a horse and a sword. And Miyamoto was like, no, Mario doesn't do that. How about Goombas and Koopas and Bowser and a hammer?
And
And they're like, okay.
And a random cloud marshmallow dude.
Yeah. So they started developing the game, and at that time, all RPGs were top view down. They had sort of developed sort of the pseudo 3D graphic of the landscape and then 2D sprite characters. But with Mario RPG, they wanted to do something different, so they had like this 3/4 angle view, so he's semi 3D. In order to do that, they actually put new chips into the cartridge that multiplied the power of the Super Nintendo by 4 times.
wow,
In order to get that game to work, which is super impressive.
That's
that's
super
really
cool.
cool. I did not know that.
Science of Legend of the Seven Stars.
Yeah. So for that reason alone, I put Mario RPG as my
Great choice.
honorable mention.
Incredible game.
Uh,
Still plays great to this day.
It does. It holds up
Absolutely.
really well. Number 5, similar to my counterpart across the table, is also Aladdin, but for the Sega Genesis. And fun fact, if you go to my house right now, my Sega Genesis has Aladdin as the cartridge in there
Nice.
as the last game that I played.
Such a
Super
pretty game.
fucking hard.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I'm not. I don't want to hop on you on here, but of that era of video games, maybe only The Lion King slaps harder in the sound department because
Correct.
it just soon as you start Aladdin up, you're like, oh yeah, the one step ahead, and you're like, oh man, I'm into it. Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, and for the Cave of Wonders level alone, on the carpet flying through the lava, it's fantastic.
Classic.
And we talked about this way back when in the GoldenEye episode.
Available in New York.
There was
That's right.
there was a time where licensed games were fucking fantastic, and Disney in particular was killing it. If you go all the way back to the regular NES with Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, all the way through these 2 games,
That's
Aladdin
else.
and Lion King, and everything that was in between, like that was hot shit at the time. And then it took a real hard nosedive right after that, and it was GoldenEye that revived that
Yeah.
after all those years. But
Agreed.
Aladdin is a fucking banger.
Do you think that the Genesis version is more difficult than the SNES version?
I'd say yes, it is.
Would you say that?
I don't like it any less.
I like them both. But
Let me ask you a question. To you, honey. Let's say you're. It's been a long weekend. You're out of town on a business trip. You've been at a convention, and you're sitting at the end of a Holiday Inn Tampa bar, and you look over, and there's Aladdin for the SNES and Aladdin for the Genesis. Which one you letting you take up to room 114?
SNES one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
There you go.
Slap. I love it. Fantastic. That's good. Would you let the Genesis watch?
No.
See, you're right. She does bring class.
One other fun fact about Aladdin for the Genesis in particular is Aladdin for the Genesis is the 3rd highest selling Genesis game of all time, only behind Sonic 1 and Sonic 2.
Wow.
And Sonic 1 doesn't really count because it came with the console.
That's right.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's much farther down the
You
list.
know
on
you're
the
OG
SNES.
when your Sonic cartridge says not for resale.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how you know you are OG.
Red print on a white border right there at the bottom.
Yeah.
That game still hits though.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
We'll get there.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna get there.
Speaking of getting there, Doc, you were so eager, but so willing some time ago for number 4. So
Yeah.
now lay it on us, whip it out, slap it down.
So there was a little bit of talk of fighting games, and Mac had put Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on it, which is an excellent title for the
Indeed.
list. But man, there's a lot of fighting games that came out for the 16-bit era. There's a lot of really bad ones, and a good, healthy amount of really good ones. But one stands atop for me, and so far as that generation of gaming, Killer Instinct is
That's a good one.
zero
Real
question to me the best fight. And back when I was a kid, I loved me some fighting games. Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Special Championship Edition was my jam back in the day. And I loved all the Mortal Kombats, like I stated. Eternal Champions, Primal Rage.
Eternal Champions.
But man, I don't know if a game forcefully took my fighting game virginity like Killer Instinct did. Because it just graphically was superior to every other game. Had a great soundtrack. The music was good. But more importantly, even though combos existed before Killer Instinct, but Killer Instinct introduced combos on steroids.
Yeah.
And it made you want to get good at it. The Ultra Combo! You were just yes!
Yes, you feel that.
Killer Combo. It was just such a vision for the game.
It's
Whoever was the director...
and dialed it up, yeah.
Yeah, whoever was the creative director for this game, whoever was the lead, had just the ability to create something and push the team to create something that I think is uniquely special. And although Killer Instinct Gold is superior in every way, but we ain't talking about Nintendo 64.
Killer Instinct Gold and Killer Instinct, I would sit here and talk about how awesome the soundtrack is. Because it was. But Killer Instinct Gold exists. And Killer Instinct Gold soundtrack is a banger.
The first 10 seconds of that game is amazing.
Yeah, and completely underrated video game soundtrack in history. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the last game that I'm pretty confident that my sister and I played together.
I was just about to ask you about that because, the rest of us grew up with brothers who were fairly close in age, so we gamed a lot together. And I know
You have no idea how lucky you were.
Yeah, and you've talked a lot in the past about that connection wasn't always there from a gaming standpoint.
It was there during the Nintendo days. It was there for certain games in the 16-bit era, and then that was the end of it. But Killer Instinct was the very end, and
That's
she,
awesome.
being basic, would always pick Orchid. Because of course she did. No judgment. I'm just saying.
Somewhere she just got pissed off for being called basic and doesn't even realize why.
Yeah, she doesn't know.
But my dude was Jago. Jago was the dude. And Cinder.
Yep.
But I thought it was a great game. I mean, it was a rip off of multiple different games and put together to create this creature, And it's still going strong to this day on Xbox.
It is. And you're saying Killer Instinct, though, and we're talking here about 16-bit games, and Sega versus Nintendo is always going to be a topic about that time. And, Mario versus Sonic, and Killer Instinct, and Mortal Kombat, and all of those things. But I don't know if you guys remember at the time, but there was someone who was being labeled as the Killer Instinct killer. You guys remember Clay Fighter?
Yes.
Does anyone remember Clay Fighter?
Remember when I said games that weren't very good?
Yeah.
I was talking
I remember
about
I remember the box artwork for that.
Yeah.
Vividly in my brain for some reason.
I rented Clay Fighter thinking, oh man, they said this is going to be more Killer Instinct than Killer Instinct.
It wasn't.
It sucked.
It was not a great game.
It sucked.
No, but that's my number 4. It sounds like you guys have played Killer Instinct.
Yes.
Mary, I know you.
I don't think I have.
You've ever heard of it?
I think so. Oh yeah, but I think I've seen it, but I don't think I played it.
It was a whole vibe. It was just that game was just a whole vibe. Fulgore, I love those characters.
Was Volgor the
He was the
gargoyle?
robot.
Oh, the robot.
He was I don't feel like he was a combination of everybody, if I remember correctly, something like that. He was like Shang Tsung, but not.
Everyone has Shang Tsung.
Robot
Yeah.
Shang Tsung.
Yeah.
So real quick, if you guys were playing Killer Instinct,
Cinder.
Cinder also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yep, Cinder.
Yeah, easy.
Cinder was my go-to.
Yeah, we were all Cinder people.
Well, all right, then that answers that question. I like Saberwolf sometimes too, if I was feeling spicy.
Yeah.
So if you guys had to kind of when you're looking at and we're jumping ahead a little bit here probably because I don't think we really had a lot of other fighting games on here. If you had to choose between Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Killer Instinct, which would you go with?
Killer Instinct.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough call. For me, I think it would be either Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter 2.
As we talk about some of these games, and Jeff, I had to step away for a minute when you're talking about Mario RPG. This might be blasphemous to everybody listening to this podcast and might end two of our friendships. I really never liked RPG games, especially like for the 16-bit systems. I couldn't get into them. I had Final Fantasy III for Sega.
Sorry, Dave, you're breaking up.
Just
Fuck you.
hated it. What'd you say, Jeff?
I said, sorry, you're breaking up. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Because I have more RPGs on my list. Just you wait.
I know. That's why I'm getting it out now. But I had issues with the type of gameplay. I didn't like how it was slower. I especially didn't like the turn-based stuff.
Oh yeah, it's a completely different vibe for sure.
Yeah. That was always a challenge for me. And honestly too, like amongst the fighting games, I respect Killer Instinct, but I never really got into it. Like it was never really my thing. I would have preferred, Mortal Kombat, Eternal Champions was my next one. Yeah. So but yeah, so fuck RPGs and just gently fuck Killer Instinct.
All right, we'll get back to that.
We'll get back to it.
Ariel,
Yeah.
what is your number 4 game?
Oh, and be specific.
I gotta know this.
So my number 4 is Super Mario World.
There you go.
That's
classic.
A little low on the list
one that
for me
started
because
it all.
Well, this is
it's
top
the
5,
first.
I mean,
It is, and it's I think it's the first game, 16-bit game I played.
That's really
So obviously it has the most feels.
Mm-hmm.
It broke so many barriers too because Mario's now you have Yoshi and now you have all these new things. So that was super exciting to have the Super Nintendo and that's the first game you put in. So still gives me all the feels.
And it was the first 3D experience, even though it was still side scroller, but it felt it felt different than Super Mario 3.
Yeah.
It has a whole vibe to it.
That's
It
a
does.
great game. That's a
I've-
great game.
No doubt in
is
my
a
mind
great
that
game.
that game will appear later in this podcast as well. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about it for right now?
Not for right now. We can come back to it, I guess.
We might. Who knows? Possible.
We may.
We'll see. Let's see. All right. So then that brings me to my number 4, and I gotta give a lot of respect where it's due. My number 4 game is the original Toe Jam and Earl for the Sega Genesis. Now I Panic on Funkatron, the sequel. Beautiful game. Way visually superior to the first game. And I liked how it still had... My favorite part is the gameplay of the original. And you still had little bits of that tucked in to Panic on Funkatron as bonus levels. Walk around and gather pieces, but... excuse me. But I played the original for so many hours, walking around, and me as a 7-year-old kid playing as Earl with his ass crack out. And all the snacks and the money. I loved it. But the number one thing about the game is that top 5 video game soundtracks
Oh, it's so good.
of all time for me is the first game. Like, just that New Jack kind of vibe to it. Put it on loop and let me just jam it. That's the whole thing. I just want to get a fade and wear a starter jacket.
You want to be 93 again?
93. Mwah.
You will definitely get those divorce papers.
I don't know though. I don't know. My wife is very fond of the 90s.
I am.
So let me ask you: if I got a fade, and I got Toe Jam and Earl shaved in the back of my head, high fade, matching starter jacket and swishy pants, pump up shoes,
Reebok pumps.
Reebok pumps.
That's a nice touch.
Right,
They
yeah.
can jump higher.
They do, statistically, scientifically proven. And I listened to exclusively Vanilla Ice's song from the second Ninja Turtles movie. Would you be down the clown?
Okay.
All right.
See?
You heard it here.
I like
That's
that.
easy. Love. That's easy. That's all you
Damn
gotta do.
straight that's
He's not a
love.
player, but he crushed a lot.
But that's my number 4. Matt, what's your number 4, buddy?
Number 4 for me, ladies and gentlemen of the interweb, is Earthworm Gym. The
first
original
one?
for Super Nintendo. So now I'm starting to get into my Super Nintendo games here. There's so much about that game that I love. Just starting with the pure ridiculousness of the premise of the game. You're just a fucking earthworm in a gigantic animatronic suit. You launch a cow in the first stage. Cow launched. Okay. Do you know why the cow's launched? No. You play the game long enough, you will.
Yep.
There's a game where there's a level where you have to fucking you go through like a hellscape. There's a level where you have to bungee jump battle a giant snot monster. You have to go in that fucking level of that game where you're in the submarine, and if you hit the walls too much, it starts to crack until like eventually the bubble breaks and you drown and die. It was a challenging game. It was visually a great game to play. The gameplay was challenging. It was fun. Like the fucking if you let him Earthworm Jim just stand there, he would just start jumping rope with his head. You know, his head would, like just even like little screensaver things the character did was awesome. Read the manual. You know, it says what do you do for the X button? You know, Y button shoots, B button jumps, A button uses the whip. Your head is the whip. What does X do? And I believe it said something along the lines of the X button turns on and off the porch light of Frau Hessen's front porch in Hamburg, Germany, and in capital letters it says, so don't fucking touch it. It didn't say fucking, but it said don't touch it. You know, and like the final boss, right? The evil queen slug for a butt. Like it just pulsating, like there was like 17 adjectives for that character's name. Just a tremendous game. One of my favorite games that I've ever played. And you know, credit to you, Jones, for having it on your list as well.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yes.
Excellent stuff. Jafar, number 4.
Yeah, so just like we'd be remiss to not have a Mario game on a 16-bit list, we'd also be remiss not to have a Sonic game when we're talking about the Genesis. So my favorite 16-bit Sonic game coming in at number 4 is Sonic Deuce, Sonic 2.
Number 2.
Now, I've played Sonic and Knuckles probably the most because I love Knuckles, but from a pure gameplay...
we know you do, you filthy fuck.
Knuckles.
He likes them wide and deep.
Yeah. He loves all those Knuckles in there.
With a voiceover from Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Just relax yourself.
But yeah,
it'll be over soon.
The updates to the gameplay, the level design, the music, it was familiar but new at the same time with the introduction of Tails.
Great. Oh my goodness.
Sonic 2 is so good.
It is really good.
Well deserved number 4 spot.
I feel like Sonic will probably show up again on this list at some point, but I just want to, as I'm going to go on a tangent about it anyhow, but I just want to just kind of lay the groundwork here. It was really difficult to hammer down a singular Sonic game to put on the list.
Yeah,
because they're all good.
It was tough for me not to put one on the list. I sat there in the car yesterday thinking about what game gets bumped off just so I have room for Sonic Spinball.
Sonic Spinball is a fucking banger. It is
awesome.
So good.
Should that have been an honorable mention?
Fucking love that
Like,
game.
I think we should all just say Sonic Spinball is the group honorable
There were
mention.
so many
Mario
honorable
didn't play it,
mentions.
but you did.
Oh.
In your heart, you did.
Maybe.
Listen,
I had that
Did you
for
ever
the
think you were
Genesis
pregnant,
and
but maybe
for
you weren't?
Game
It was
Gear.
Sonic Spinball
Oh
that
my
did it.
goodness. I just feel, and I don't want to like hijack what you were saying, Jeff. Sonic and the franchise, the first 4 games, this is the first technical 4, but the first 4 single-player-esque games, 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, they're so well done. The music is so good. Like, it's so good. And I won't get there at some point, but I just want to hammer down how much I like just the music of this franchise alone. But
And the evolution of the game, even into newer consoles. I mean, the GameCube Sonic games are fucking fantastic.
I mean,
So
Sonic
good.
Adventure for the Dreamcast, and then the
Yeah.
port. Yeah. Incredible.
The introduction of Shadow and everything that came
Everything.
through
Supersonic.
that. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Well-
Yeah, so good.
How about too with Sonic and Knuckles? It had the adapter in the game
On the top.
cartridge.
Yep. Oh,
that
that
you
was a
could
game
put
changer.
Another game into it, and then like like Knuckles would play in Sonic 1 or Sonic 2. I just thought that was really cool too.
Yeah.
that was ingenious. Replayability, like no one's business.
For sure. Now, speaking of replayability, your number 3.
Yeah, I'm going to get right into this shit. So now that we're in the top 3, we're talking about games you put a lot of time in, you have emotional attachments to, for whatever reason. And we're going straight to Road Rash 3. Now, look, here's the deal. Road Rash 2 is visually a superior game. And I may have spent a hair more time with Road Rash 2, but Road Rash 3 was just better in every other way. Road Rash
so good, though.
as a franchise was so simple, but there was so much that you could do with it. You just keep playing it and keep playing it. And there's something about riding up on somebody, taking a club, and just jamming it in the spokes of their motorcycle, watch them fly off the wheel. Like, that's pure joy.
Yeah, it's fascinating that so many of these games from this generation have such high replayability. Because even now, like, you play through campaign on something, it's one and done.
Yeah, you're good.
Like, you're putting it back on the shelf, and unless it's multiplayer, you're not picking it up again. But these games, like, you could just pick up and play it anytime, and it's not like you had to commit, like, hours at a time. Like, you could just pick it up, play it for a few hours, put the controller away, and be on with your business.
Yeah, and
it was a different time, man.
It was very. Plus, you didn't have a job.
We were children. Yes, that's correct.
One of the big things about Road Rash 3, too, on top of everything else, it was the introduction of, like, I'm pretty sure that 2 didn't have bike upgrades. You could upgrade your bike. You could start really kitting it out a little bit, But much like Toe Jam, much like almost every game on my list, it had a vibe to it. It had, like, its own little unique feel to it. So, like, little cut scenes when you win or lose. Like, if you lost and your little person walks up the tire around his neck and he walks up and looks and falls over, or, you win and you, like, drive off and, like, rip some woman's dress off by accident. Like, all the little shenanigans that came with this little game. But all it came down to was aggression. And there was a game my sister and I would play. We were very head-to-head when it came to that stuff. It was a game we could compete, and she was, like, something that she could wrap her head around, and we were in. And I loved just rolled up on her, just hit with a cattle prod, or, the things I couldn't actually do in real life, I could do to her. And she gets, or just simple stuff, like somebody's rolling up on you, you kick them, you knock them out of the way, you're like, haha, I'm good, and you, like, look over, and there's a car coming right at you.
Yeah.
And then, bam, you're like, son of a bitch! And you have to run over to your bike and hope it doesn't blow up when you get to it. I have such fond memories of that entire franchise. And really, we're at the stage now, Sans 1, where, like, it's a franchise feel.
Yeah.
Really. Like,
Road Rash 2 was really good,
that's
too.
what I was saying. Like, graphically, it's superior than 3. But, like, 3 added more to it.
No, I'm sorry, because I did step away for a second. We had a toddler moment, but I gotta ask you, what is your go-to weapon in Road Rash 3?
In 3?
Yeah.
I like the cattle prod.
Yeah, me too. Because it was the toughest one to stick. But when you got somebody and they went,
you got it.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I get to suck it. Suck it.
It was good stuff.
Road Rash 64.
I played it, but I don't remember liking it.
No, disappointing, but, I mean...
Some sequels should not exist.
No. I'd love to see a modern Road Rash, though. That would be a game that I'd like to see.
Yeah, but if it's done well.
If it's, like, be easier to control than Grand Theft Auto Online or 5 is with trying to have a weapon while you're driving.
So what would happen is, I think that's a good idea, but what would happen is some game company would try to reinvent the wheel and make it an open world game. Because they'd say, well, look at Forza Horizon. We can just do this with Road Rash, and they'd ruin it. Let's just make it a circuit, make it one race.
Yeah. You didn't really make it a full AAA game. You could do it as an indie game. $30 instead of $60. Anyone need a refill? No, we did. Okay. So, Merle. Number 3, we're in your top 3.
This is where it started to get tough for me. And so it's interesting you have all Genesis games. Because I have all SNES because we didn't have Genesis till later. So I was mostly... My video games were a lot what my brother would buy, what my brother would get, and we'd play together. And so I had trouble separating, like, what games did I just watch him play and listen to the music?
What he liked,
yeah. So there were a lot of games where... What?
You need to tell these guys and our dear sweet listeners... You have an interesting thing, though, because you are a musician. You are a masterful, in my opinion, musician. And my wife is such an elite version of nerd that she would listen to games that her brother was playing or she was playing, and she would then grab sheet music and chart out the music from the game and then learn how to play it on the flute.
I would learn how to play it on the flute first, then I would transcribe the music, and then I would take it to my flute lesson, and my teacher would be like, what is this?
But, like, this is the secret of mana. Yeah. Suck a dick.
Secret of mana a lot.
I did say you were talented.
That's amazing.
So
some of them, I'm like, did I just like the music from that game and watching my brother play it? So I had to really pick what games did I spend time on.
Playing.
And so my number 3 is SimCity. Because I spent a significant amount of time playing SimCity.
That's a tough game.
Yeah.
SimCity's tough to figure out.
There's a learning curve to
There
SimCity
is.
games.
There's a lot to
For
it.
sure.
And they have the scenarios, and you can pick which disasters that you have to fix. I just like building it from the ground up and seeing how big I could get my city, and can I get a megalopolis, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of hours.
You guys have Game Pass still, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Have you introduced
City
her?
Skylines?
Did you tell her
Not
about
yet.
City Skylines? That might be your jam.
Okay.
It is the modern
It is-
version. Of
okay.
SimCity.
It is superior to SimCity in every way, and it's actually fun.
Okay.
It's actually a fun game. And it's on Game Pass. You can it should still be on Game Pass for free. I have it on Game Pass for free. It's fantastic. It's a lot
It
of
is.
fun.
I look at it occasionally. I played it on the PS4, not the Xbox version. But I keep looking at it thinking, I'll download it.
It's a game where you accidentally spend 6 hours on,
Yeah.
Right.
and then you don't
Right.
touch it again for 8 months.
You're like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Wait, the sun went down? What happened?
I'll have to give that a try.
You should.
Sounds great.
Excellent. Did you play any of the further iterations of SimCity?
I didn't like any of them. I
Okay.
tried, but only the original gives me the special feel. And that was I just spent so much time playing that game that I couldn't not put it on the list, and I had to put it high up because it just gives me good memories, and I just spent a lot of time on it.
Good vibes, good
And
times.
that's the beauty of our list, and the whole thing with our list is like it's less about like what's the best thing you've ever played. It's like what is your favorite? What's your thing?
Yeah.
And it could be a game that is technically one of the worst games ever made and critically panned.
Yeah, but it has a
it's
personal
your thing.
tie.
It's your thing.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to take the Super Nintendo out, I would possibly put in SimCity and play it for a few hours.
That's really
build
cool.
another city. So
Nice.
That speaks and
That
it
is
speaks a lot type of person you were as a kid.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, not a lot of kids had a lot of patience. To
I know
play
I
SimCity.
did.
And I didn't have a lot of like fighting games. My brother didn't buy a lot of those types of games. My mom didn't buy those for him because he didn't really want them, and so I was kind of stuck with whatever he got, unless I really wanted something. We can go into the worst games ever at some point.
One day.
I got
Whole
some of
other
those.
conversation.
A lot of those.
There are some-
You should really join us next week when we talk about video game movies, because there's going to be a lot of the term worst.
Yeah, there's not a
Thrown
lot
around.
of good there.
No.
So,
I guess
So-
I'll hop in. Mac, what's up?
so Mario, you're saying that SimCity just gave you that special feeling, the way that the Sega Channel gives Herb that special feeling.
Yes. You could just sit there and stare at it for hours and let it open itself up to you, right? Would
Yeah.
you describe SimCity as possibly a generous lover?
No.
No? Is it a cold, calculating bitch?
Yes.
Then perhaps I'm attracted to it. I don't know.
Wow. Anyway, so
Let that one sit.
Let that simmer for another 35, 40 minutes.
Yep.
things
Okay.
not to say to your significant other in the middle of
Listen,
Take
we're on the
notes.
internet. I'm playing a character.
Oh no, you're not.
That is
playing a
100% a lie.
Kayfabe, baby.
You
Kayfabe.
are the character.
Number 3 for me. And it's a weird one, but you're talking about games that now we're in the top 3. I asked myself, what? Because you're a kid when these systems are coming out, and they can help you take you into a teenager, into the generation after this, the PlayStation, Saturn, and 64. We all really kind of became gamers there with harder games than the bigger graphics. But my 3 games here are the games that are undoubtedly amongst the first games I ever full on beat at least once, multiple times in this instance. So my number 3 is a game that has a very spiritual place for me, and that is Spider-Man Maximum Carnage for the Super Nintendo.
Good game.
I loved that game.
That game is
Yeah.
freaking
So good.
incredible. It was, to me, the Spider-Man standalone game was cool, right? And it came out around the same time that the Spider-Man animated series, the spin-off to the X-Men animated series, excuse me, came out.
Now, no,
But-
the Spider-Man game you're talking about was because I've looked back on it and can't quite figure. It was just Spider-Man, right?
Just Spider-Man.
And he played against the Sinister Six, but they didn't dub the game Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six, right?
No, that's a separate game.
That's a different game.
That is a separate game. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, and it played very similar to, it was almost a hybrid of Turtles in Time and the X-Men game.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good analogy.
It was like a mix of the two, and it was cool. But I didn't really like it very much. But Maximum Carnage was a better game. You could play Spider-Man or Venom. It was tough, but it was fun. And it was the first game that made me feel like, oh, I'm controlling Spider-Man. And
I can still see the ad
Yeah.
in the Game Pro. I can still visualize that ad.
One of the great comic book ads of all time is that game, because during the Amazing Spider-Man run building up to the Amalgam DC versus Marvel run in the mid '90s, that game was being advertised like right before that dropped. And so you'd open up the cover, and on the left-hand side, there it was every time. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait. And I went to the Toys R Us that 3/5 of us would eventually work at. I bought that game brand new the week it came out for $75.
Wow.
Because Super Nintendo games were fucking expensive.
They were not cheap. Yeah.
And I got my $75 worth.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that game, Noah, and I love that game. As I was kind of going through my because I still have my Super Nintendo and Sega games, and I was going through that and looking and just kind of preparing for this. And the thing I love about that game, I'm so happy you put it on the list because I get to talk about it, is that it introduced you to all these other characters in Spider-Man and in Marvel that you probably otherwise wouldn't have really paid attention to. Not even like just good guys but bad guys too. And I love that as you're kind of playing the game, you'd have to summon Cloak and Dagger to kind of help you out because
Black Cat.
All the symbiotes were fighting and you just couldn't quite get past it. Or that you had to fight against Shriek. And sometimes you'd have to call Deathlock to come in. And it just had such a great roster of characters that participated in the game. And I didn't even know that all these characters existed in Marvel. Like for me at that age, when the game came out, it introduced me to a whole new level of comic books and all that stuff.
Well, everyone who played that game back then and saw Moon Knight forgot that Moon Knight existed until about 4 months ago. When they announced
Moon Knight forgot Moon Knight existed.
They called Oscar Isaac up and they made him relevant.
Yeah.
But only his biggest run was in Maximum Carnage as a side character, which it still really does play as a hybrid of X-Men and the game and Turtles in Time. But I think none of us have the X-Men game on our list, even though it was cool as shit when it came out.
I mean, the original one sucked.
It was so cool to be able to see that on like an art and see the game.
Battle of the Clones, Clone Wars. Oh,
The Clone Wars.
Was it Clone Wars?
It was the Clone Wars.
That one was excellent.
Yes.
That was the excellent Genesis X-Men game.
Yes, that was far superior in the first one. But the game was a terrible game that was way too tough. But it was still so cool to play as the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Turtles in Time is an all-time classic. If any of the Turtles games, like literally any of the Ninja Turtles video games, they've never bothered to make a bad one.
I mean, the one on Nintendo's not very good.
No, I mean, but compared to the other games at its time, and what was the other games that you think about major franchises? Battletoads, which
original Ninja Turtles game is probably the hardest game I've ever played in my entire life.
It's so bad.
I mean, honestly, dam level. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that shaved off like a year or two of my life.
Recently, I revisited that game.
Why'd you do that to yourself?
Because I have it, and I have a Nintendo, so I started playing it. And so Melissa's upstairs, and I'm downstairs in the basement playing the game and drinking. And she could just hear me just MFing this fucking game. And she's like, what are you doing down there? I was like, nothing anymore. I'm not playing this fucking game.
I'm done.
Punching myself with a dick.
It's too hard.
More fun than this.
I'm fucking mashing it. Like the Killers. Speaking of Killers.
Back to our archives.
Yeah,
Dave. Number 3, what you got?
All right, so number 3 for me is a very, very special game to me. I've always been a big fan of spaceship games. Mm-hmm. Gradius, R-Type. UN Squadron isn't a spaceship game, but it plays like one. So I've always really enjoyed those. Now, there's one spaceship game in particular that stood out to me as a kid, stood out to me as an adult. And it's a game called Darius Twin. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever played Darius Twin. Has anybody here at the panel played Darius Twin? Because I know a couple of my picks coming up here are a little bit more obscure games, but this was one of the first games that I ever had a chance to play where you could actually have two people playing the game at the same time.
Okay.
It was kind of one of those first games where, if in two-player mode, you had a red ship and a blue ship. And if you're one-player mode, it was just a green ship. And it played very similarly to a lot of spaceship games. You would get upgrades to your ship. You'd have stronger weapons. But like the whole theme of the game was like this race of aliens based off of like things from the ocean. And you got to kind of pick and choose the levels you played to get from the beginning to get to the end. So everybody started at the same world, World A. And then you could pick after you got past World A, do you want to go to B or do you want to go to C? And then you had to go to D. And then like it opened up E, F, and G. And depending on where you went, there's a different boss. There was a different mid-level boss that you had to fight. And the game was just complete and utter chaos. The music in the game fucking slaps. Cool. Which is one of the things I also loved about it. And when you got to the final level, you got to the final thing, it was total fucking bedlam. The entire level against the final thing were all the mid-level bosses coming at you 5 times faster and 5 times as many as it was when you fought them earlier in the game. It's such a cool, such a fun game. I played that game. I still play that game. Anytime I go down and we'll hang out with Mike Anaskevich down in DC, we'll hook up the Super Nintendo and play Darius Twin or play Super Bases Loaded and just kind of revisit all that. So if you get a chance to play it, it's a tough game to find. It's probably not something you get to see online very often either. But if you ever get a chance to play it, give it a shot. I think you'll enjoy it. One of my easily favorite games of all time for the 16-bit system.
So until you put that on your list and sent it in the group chat, I had never heard of this game before in my life. Same. And so when I saw it, I almost instantly knew it was like some sort of space battle game. I was like, this just sounds like it is. So I went and I had low expectations because I don't like games like that typically. They just don't do it for me. But I was like, I was going to check it out. And I was pleasantly surprised, like visually, it was very appealing. I really dug the general vibe and like the design choices for like the like everything. You know, the architecture, the background, the whole 9 yards. So I watched like a long play of it, like really quickly. I kind of skipped different parts to kind of get an idea what it was about. I dug it though; it looked pretty cool.
Good. Very bold.
It's a fun game, and the bosses are awesome. Like the bosses in the game, they're all sea creatures. It's a turtle. It's a squid. It's barracudas. It's a shark. It's a fucking blue whale.
Is there a sweaty seahorse in there?
And they're all armored out, tanked out ships, and it's awesome. So,
how many tentacles?
Oh,
what's that?
Don't do it.
I just didn't know if there were any tentacles. Any tentacles?
Yes,
around?
there are definitely tentacles. The one I think in World D, which is like the third stage you play,
World D,
the final boss is a squid.
There are tentacles in World D.
Completely unrelated.
Yes,
Marielle.
The tentacles are in D.
How do you feel about World D? You a fan of the D?
You like the tentacles in World D?
Yeah. You down? You down for some D
We're up
tentacles?
to Jeff. What's your next?
As we move along.
Speaking of sea creatures. So number 3 for me is a game we just mentioned a few minutes ago, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. Now, my love for this game started outside of the console world. So a lot of times, like, we relate some of these things to, like, personal experiences and memories and whatnot. So back in the day, when I was growing up in Ohio, which I had no control over.
We forgive you for this. Sorry,
Listen,
I
stopped judging you years ago.
But we lived about 3 blocks from a Burger King. Now, back in the day, in the late 80s and early 90s, McDonald's and Burger King had arcades in them. So this particular Burger King had a little arcade in the back of the restaurant, and they had a racing game. I think it was off-road, maybe. They had the Simpsons arcade machine.
So good.
Classic.
And they had Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. And me and my brothers, because we're often left home alone after school because our parents were working, we would often scrounge up some quarters and head up to Burger King and just play whatever games they had. So I spent a lot of time in Burger King playing Turtles in Time. So I was very happy when it was ported to the consoles. It's just a great fucking game.
It's so...
And for the playability of it, the ease of just picking it up and playing, and, you know, the arcade is a completely different experience because you got the joystick and the 2 buttons, and 4 of you could play together. You pick your turtle. The game was just
It's the one you're
so
thinking of.
good.
It's the one I'm thinking
It's-
of.
Yeah,
So
yeah. When you're thinking of the turtle games that we've sat down and played together, me, you, and your brother at one point sat down and played. It was Turtles in Time. We sat down and played together.
So it's the traditional arcade.
It's the
Yes.
Turtles.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
the good
I don't
one.
think I had that.
The one
on
where you're
Super
on the
Nintendo.
construction
Yeah.
side. And
I just played it in the arcade.
Yeah,
a
it was
lot.
ported to consoles like years later in
Okay.
like the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, I don't think we ever had it, but I know I played it a lot in the arcade.
It was the one,
definitely.
and that
Yeah.
game is so
Yeah,
good.
It is the best Turtles game there is, hands down, regardless
It's great.
of generation. 8-bit, 16-bit, 64-bit, whatever.
All time.
Quality game.
It's so
Yeah.
fucking good.
It's one of those. There's very few games, but it exists to this day. Simpsons arcade game's one of them, and there's my all-time favorite arcade game is WWF Wrestle Fest.
Oh boy.
You know where it was like we're talking. If 1991 WWF was a video game,
Yeah.
there it was, and you had the Royal Rumble too, which was even harder to find. But if I still to this day, at any time in my life, I walk in and I see Turtles in Time, Simpsons, or one of those old school wrestling games, and I'm breaking cash,
Yeah.
or I'm going to the ATM to get cash to make points, because I don't care what else we're doing. I don't care if we're going to a funeral. Guess who's making time?
Yeah.
It's Turtles in Time.
Yeah. So
Incredible.
I spent way more time playing it in the arcade than on the console, but it has
Still.
a very, very special place in my heart.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I just gave that a replay, guys, just a couple of weeks ago. Listener of the show, Paul Hewalt, got
Paul.
that as
Hi.
a gift for his 40th birthday. He got the arcade, and we had a chance to go over there and celebrate. He's like, "You got to come down and see it," and there it was. So what
That's
did we
really
do
cool.
for the next 2 hours? Beat both because it had the original and then Turtles in Time. Just went through and played them both and beat them both.
Did he make you put quarters in it?
No, actually, because the arcade 1-up version of the game doesn't
Ah.
actually have the it has the lights for the quarters.
Yeah.
But there's no slot.
Missed
No.
Say
opportunity.
about my daughter's slot, Noah.
Well, you know, all
It's
I'm
just
saying is-
computers, Dad.
I mean, all I'm saying is that if there is no slot, sometimes you may have to make one. That's all I'm gonna say.
Make with that
About
what you want.
arcade games.
So anyways.
Yes.
It seems like all of us have played Turtles in Time.
Oh, for sure.
Who is your go-to turtle?
Raphael.
Raphael.
Oh my god. On every level.
Michelangelo.
Donatello.
I'm a Donatello guy.
Yeah.
I'm Michelangelo.
Yeah.
All day, every day. Even though statistically in a video game, he is the worst. He is the worst.
Short range is hard. Short range.
Short
weapons.
range.
Donatello
Yeah.
was the easiest one to play as.
Yeah, but I can't not be Michelangelo.
What about you, Matt?
So I think this is hysterical, and it doesn't surprise me one bit how each of you answered which turtle you are. And because I say that, what turtle do you think I play as?
You're the
Leonardo.
I
You're
am
the cuck, Leonardo.
absolutely. It is not even. It is not. Yeah, absolutely.
You fucking cunt.
Hey!
You're gonna be okay.
All right.
Food.
Oh my
Get him
god.
some food.
Get him some food. Don't pull out.
No.
Like, and you look at it, guys. Like in terms of
There's
our,
that, folks.
in terms of like our friendship and our dynamic and everything, it does kind of make sense. The turtles that we associate with and the ones we play, right?
True.
I feel like we got a
I'm
group
looking around the
costume.
table and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty true.
Mario, what did you go as this Halloween one year? What Turtles side character did your
Oh,
mom?
I was April O'Neil. Yes.
There you go.
So I
There it
feel like
is.
we got enough good Halloween costume coming
Yeah,
on here.
there we go.
Oh, man.
Oh man, it's gonna
I
be a
like
good
that.
time.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. For
Speaking of staying
this.
tuned,
Oh boy.
we're up to our number two
man.
pick.
Number
So
two.
excited.
Doc,
I've
what
been
you
looking forward
got?
to talking
The
about this.
Intercontinental Champion of 16-bit games.
Yes.
What do you at?
Look, I'm gonna get right to it. Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one. Look,
Nice.
okay.
So good.
So here's the deal. It's not the superior Sonic game,
No.
but god damn it, it's so good.
It-
I spent so much time on that game, and I'm pretty confident I spent more time on 2, not as much on 3 because 3 was way harder. I don't know. I swear to God, Sonic 3 was the hardest Sonic game to beat. It just felt like it was. I beat the game, but it was difficult. Sonic Knuckles, excellent game, but it was towards the end.
3.5 Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just
Basically
sort
what-
of like I was still like into Sonic and I was into all that, but I was kind of like my interest and my passion for the Sonic franchise was starting to kind of fatigue. But man, up, down, left, right, hold A, press start. Pull up the level select. There you had the code for the debug mode, which was it up B, down B, left B, right B, and start, maybe something like that, where you can pull up the debug mode and you can like become an enemy and float around the level. Like that was the first time. Yeah, you can do that.
Did not know that.
Mary Ellis just went, "I'm sorry."
Should I say what now?
What?
Yeah, there was a level select mode. Everybody knew about that,
Yeah.
right? You hit a little ding when you hit the start, but then there was the debug mode. And I don't know how the hell I figured this out. It had to have been Game Pro, Sega Vision. It was definitely Sega Vision,
Yeah.
the magazine. It's the only way I would have known this. But there was a way to go into like I don't know if it was the developer debug mode or they just allowed you to do it. Either way, you could go in and you could just create boxes and boxes of extra lives or rings or whatever you want and just screw around an entire level if you wanted to. And that created such a level of replayability for me. Mm-hmm. But more than anything else,
You're getting closer, folks.
Uh-oh.
the Starlight Zone. That song.
It's stuck in your head. As soon as you hear it, it's there.
It
You
is-
can't get rid of it.
I don't know if there was a more magical, like, original soundtrack or a video game ever since. It's just it is my favorite. It is, matter of fact, it was both, and it could be why I like it so much. My sister and I love that level. Whenever we would do the level select code, I almost always would go to the Starlight Zone just to listen to the music, play the level.
That's what I feel about Casino Zone.
I was going to say
Casino Zone
Nights.
was my
Casino
slap,
Zone was
yeah.
jam.
That was my slap. Like I would just stand there and I'm like, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna. Yeah.
I'm not even gonna play. I'm just gonna let it
I
run.
was gonna let it run.
But, Sonic the Hedgehog, all the Sonic games were just smooth.
Mm-hmm.
They just were smooth. They played well. It was a simple game. I mean, there wasn't much to it.
No.
But there were secrets. There were some secrets. There were little hidden gems and little shortcuts.
Or to being able to burrow your way through the mountain in the Green Hill Zone, and fast enough. And I say, is it when you think about greatest games ever? There's been a lot of games made since then. They're better, but it's pretty perfect. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
It's relatable across generations.
Yes.
That anybody can pick it up, from a little kid to a grown-ass adult who has never played games in the 50-plus years that they've been alive,
They
but
can
they
grab
can
Sonic
pick it up. And I think it was a really smart play by Sega to sort of put their stake in the ground and say, okay, this is going to be who we're putting our money behind. Like, this character is going to carry our flag. And I think it was a really smart play, especially, if you look at the console wars and how they evolved over the years. To compete with Nintendo, you had to have a character like that wasn't
Smooth move.
that wasn't real per
Yeah.
se.
Yeah.
It's a blue fucking hedgehog. Hedgehogs aren't even
They
blue,
don't look like that.
and they have a lot of spikes, not
Yeah.
just four.
Well, really weirdly wide
Yeah,
and thick
and they're
ones.
not that fast.
No.
No.
None of it makes any sense.
No.
But the game is fucking fantastic in
Speaking
every iteration.
Speaking of console wars, has anyone? Well, I know because we've seen the documentary Console Wars on Paramount Plus?
No.
Is what it is?
Yes, that's very good.
No.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Seth Rogen produced it. It's about the rise of Nintendo, more specifically, the rise of Sega and what Nintendo did to try to squash it. And then while no one was paying attention, here comes Sony. So it's
Yeah.
really about 89
Yeah.
to 95, like in a nutshell. And it paints Sega. It's such a weird thing because it paints Sega like a baby face, and Nintendo like Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Like and then Sony's Sting up in the rafters, watching, waiting for it to happen. It's really good. So I recommend any of our listeners looking for a good 90 minutes of
Okay.
really interesting shit, because they interview everyone but Miyamoto.
Of course.
So-
No one interviews Ric Flair unless he wants to be interviewed.
No, exactly. So no, he'll be interviewed. He won't shut the fuck up about anything. And Miyamoto, on the other hand, no, you don't speak to Miyamoto unless spoken to. But it's great watch.
It is great.
Keep that in mind. But yeah, that Sonic is my jam, and I absolutely love it. It was
It's
a really
solid pick,
and
man.
it's weird that it's like I want to just say it's the franchise's number 2, but I gotta pick a game. But in my mind, the Sonic franchise is number 2. But I digress. This is Brown.
I think this is where I would put a Sonic game if I had one growing up, but I think I played that mostly a little bit older.
Yeah.
So my number 2 is Mario RPG.
There
Wow.
You go. There you go.
Yes.
Hey girl,
Taste.
Very nice.
you got a man? You want one? That's good. So why is it your number 2? Why does it connect with you?
It was just such a new feeling. And I didn't realize that they, like you said, they put extra into the cartridge to make it perform better. But just the whole look of it, the fact that it was an RPG, and I did enjoy RPGs. But my brother played all the RPGs, and growing up, that was not accessible to me because I was little and I didn't really understand how to play them. And they also didn't really appeal to me with the graphics, and it just never really appealed to me as much. When that came out, it was bright, it was bubbly, it was exciting, so I wanted to play it. That was really my first RPG that I spent time on and beat. And the music is fantastic.
It was good.
And
it's got the Mario energy to it. For also having an early Square energy to it. But I mean, like Mallow, it's like a fucking cloud, right? That is a talking cloud as a character. But it still has that peppiness that really you didn't really get a lot of in the Mario games because characters didn't have dialogue. Mm-hmm. And now as you are moving with Mario RPG, you're like, oh, and it's that peppy, quippy. So yeah, excellent.
Yeah, and all the other RPGs were so serious. Mm-hmm. And this one was so fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. It was pretty funny, like if you follow the story all the way through. And to see Bowser and Mario on the same side, like it was just it was so oddly unique experience.
For sure.
It's good. It's real good.
You got to think about what every Final Fantasy game that came around in the 90s was like. Mission 1, chase down this bunny rabbit. Last mission, kill God. And it's like, wow, that escalated quick. That's what I mean. Maybe a talking sword is a good boss.
Yeah, probably should have eased into that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, my number 2 all-time favorite 16-bit game will come as no surprise because I do try to bring it up. In conversation as what I consider one of the best games that most people have never heard of, and that is Comix Zone for the Sega Genesis. The all-time motherfucking soundtrack in any game starts with like a grungy feel. Did you ever play it, Mary?
I did not.
You are a comic book artist who is sucked in to his own comic while the main villain of his comic escapes into the real world. And he, the villain, is drawing the bad guys at you as you progress through your comic book.
Sounds very cool.
It all takes place in the panels
and you're
on the
page. And you gotta when you're fighting guys, like you kick them and they break through the wall, which is the next panel, and you're flipping through and you're swinging around, and it is so cool. And it's the thing that because I played it on the Sega Channel, and then Sega Channel.
I bet you did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I fucking went full deep inside Three Knuckles on that game.
The panel's not the only thing you broke through on the Sega Channel.
Penetrated it.
Well, now, Comix Zone was a midpoint or towards the end?
94, 95.
So 95, okay.
So towards the end.
Yeah.
And I played it, but the Sega Channel didn't work great for me. So I loved it.
No, anybody else.
It worked good for anybody. I loved it so much that I went, and there's very few games that I remember how much I paid for them. Because I bought them out of my own money. And it was $44.99 for Comix Zone at Toys R Us. And I got every goddamn cent out of that game. And that's one of the first games that as you beat the game. And you went into the options menu. When you went into the option menu, it was just difficulty, controls, and I think you could do basic 1 through 10 volume adjustments. But as you beat levels, even if you died, you unlock the music of that level in the options. Like you can go so I was like, oh, I died 6 levels in, but I'm going to the options.
Yeah.
And I'm going to listen to the fake Alice in Chains and the fake Nirvana and the fake Beastie Boys song, which is slamming in that. So, Comix Zone. I users, this is my pick. That if there's one game that you did not hear of, if it's not Darius Twin, please make it Comix Zone. Go find it on an emulator. It is on the Xbox Live Arcade. So
I did not know that.
It is.
That game is great.
All right.
And I think it's $9.99. So please, you owe it to yourself. Go get it.
I'd like to think that most people heard of Comix Zone, though. I thought it was pretty popular.
Well, what I love about doing an episode like this is I remember Comix Zone, but I forgot about Comix Zone.
That you knew.
Until he brought it up, and I was like, why does that sound so familiar? And then I pulled it up, and I was like, holy shit, this is that fucking game that I remember playing 20 plus years ago that I forgot about.
So good.
And that's a game that I knew about from gaming magazines, and I really wanted to play it, and my parents were not going to buy it for me, of course. So I had to rent it multiple times. Which at that point they should have just fucking bought it for me.
Yeah.
But
10 rentals
whatever.
for $3.99. You bought a game. Yeah.
But that game was so good. It was martial arts, if I recall correctly, right? Like the kicking. It was like basically.
Yeah.
And if you look at if I'm visualizing
Gambit.
the character properly, he's basically Rob Van Dam.
He looked like Rob Van Dam, a blonde Rob Van Dam.
Yeah.
If Rob Van Dam met one of the bad guys from Die Hard, right? But had the same moveset as Gambit. Because you had the staff,
Yes.
right? And you're like flipping around. He didn't have any magic abilities, but it had like this just wonderful, you know, like you have like the sewery levels where the things come down, and then, but it still had that like kind of an X-Men game. Wow. You know, like those weird side of
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest bosses for a game that you didn't care how hard the boss was. It's one of those types of things like, I'm fucking beating this. Because it was a chore to get there. Not because the game was hard up to that point, because it was long.
Yes.
And then you get to the last level and you're fighting the main villain. And you're like, in the real world. And you don't have the abilities that you have. Because the first half of the fight takes place in the comic. Second half of the fight takes place outside of the comic. And you don't have the abilities that you did. And it's like, I'm beating you. I'd rather die. I'd rather die than not beat this game. Incredible game. Number 2 with a bullet.
Okay.
Comic Zone.
That's solid choice.
Yes.
Mac.
Big Mac attack.
Number 2. Deuces.
Number 2. So, and it's kind of funny that it's number 2 because it was the second game I ever got for the Super Nintendo. You know, you all get Super Mario World when you bought the system. That's right, kids. When you buy video game systems, video games came with it.
They did.
Just one.
Yeah. But number 2 for me was a game called Actrazer. For the Super Nintendo. Now, Actrazer is a little bit more well-known of a game. Often it shows up on the the Nintendo channel to purchase. It comes out on some of those plug-and-play systems you can get. Didn't come out with the Super Nintendo Classic. I was a little bummed about that. But this game, I don't think there's ever been a game like it. You start out as basically the gods. And you're looking down on the world, and it is pretty much barren. So you send your emissary down to the earth to help civilization start to grow. So it has like this element of the Sims and SimCity and Roller Coaster Tycoon and some of those other types of games where you're there and you're basically helping people start building houses. And, as you're protecting them from monsters in the world. And then as you kill more monsters, your civilization levels up. The houses go from being like dirt huts to like log cabins to like stone houses. But as the people start to grow, they uncover layers of terrible demons that are drawing in the people and killing your population. So then the gods have to send a Herculean emissary down to the level, and it switches from being a game where you're kind of world building to like a 2-dimensional side-scrolling action game. And now you're going through all these different levels, fighting all these monsters until you get obviously to the boss at the end of each level. And then you go back to different parts of the world and help other parts of society kind of grow. And you just keep going back and forth. It was such a great game. And like every great 16-bit game that had multiple levels and multiple bad guys, when you got to the end, your Herculean warrior had to go to like the top of this mountain. And there are all these different things. And you had to go and basically re-kill every end boss all over again before you killed the final demon monster. It was such a fun
around
game.
these parts, we call that lazy development.
What's that?
We call that lazy development around these parts.
They're like, oh shit, we're running out of time to get this game out. Let's recycle all these animations.
That's the old
and drop all these
Bungie
bosses
flair
back in.
from Halo. Let's make the player play through the game, and then the other half is going backwards.
Yeah.
Playing the exact same thing you just did. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'm with you. But the game
keep in
was
mind,
awesome,
when this game came out, there weren't a lot of games that did that. And this was kind of one of the first. You'd have in Mega Man. If you were playing Mega Man, every time you got to Dr. Wily, the last thing, you had to go back through and fight all the guys again before you'd go ahead and fight Dr. Wily. And it was kind of similar to this, but it was just really. It was a fun game. It was really, really unique for the time. It combined a lot of elements of games that we really enjoy today. And, it was really the first of its kind that kind of did that.
Yeah, and like I mentioned with Comic Zone, it's one of those games that I forgot about until you guys said, hey, this is on my list. And I was like, why does that sound so familiar? And then going back, I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember this game.
Yeah, I wasn't on the list, so I didn't get to know what you guys'
love
picks
it
were.
the way that you loved it. But
I blame your husband for that.
Just from what I watched back of it, I mean, it's probably worth a playthrough these days, for sure.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking back to a point that you guys kind of made just a little bit ago, and going through these lists and watching playthroughs on YouTube and everything, realizing that there are games that you forgot about that you remembered. For me, there are some games that you guys had on the list. Like I never played Comic Zone. I never knew about it. I've never heard of it. And no, it was never in our household. Like I knew nothing about it. And I'm now introduced to a game that I never knew existed. And now that I know that it's on, you said what, Xbox?
Xbox.
Yeah. I'm gonna, when I get home and get a chance, I'm gonna fucking download it and play it.
So good.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to put on a 90s alternative playlist driving around, because you're like, even though you've heard those songs 1,000 times, and we live in Pittsburgh, we've heard them all 20,000 times.
Yeah.
They hit different.
You call it a 90s alternative playlist. I just call it a playlist.
The radio.
The radio. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
As evidenced by your flowing mullet.
Oh, it's a mullet today.
The flow is fierce.
Yeah.
I like it.
I love it. Fitting right in Florida.
So Jeff,
Yes. So we're down to the final two, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big whore for Nintendo. So both of my top two games are on Super Nintendo. This one, if I did any list in any generation of games, there will always, always, always be a Legend of Zelda game on there. So my number 2 is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
So good.
Jeff, you're so fucking wrong. That's all I'm going to say right now. You're just so fucking wrong.
Whatever, Dave.
Fuck your list, Jeff. Fuck your list.
That's so aggressive.
From Tampa.
I just complimented your hair, and now you're insulting
you
my
did.
love of games.
We're both
and my
wearing
love of
pirate
games.
hats. Truce. You're right.
But
Gently
Link
make
to the
love
Past.
to your list, Jeff. Caress
Link
it.
to the Past is so fucking good. I'm a hardcore Legend of Zelda fan,
Yes.
as I mentioned. So any Zelda game will be on any list we ever do, as it's related to console games and Nintendo. But this game in particular, it elevated. So the original Legend of Zelda, fucking fantastic on the NES.
Yes.
Zelda 2, not so much. Changed the gameplay style, the side scroller. People weren't used to that. It sort of felt uncomfortable. A Link to the Past brought it all back, but it elevated because of the enhancements in the graphics and whatnot. The story was fantastic. The music is phenomenal.
Oh, so good.
And it's fucking Link, man. It's Link and Zelda.
Link traveling through time.
What
They
more
would, I
could you
think so
ever
nice
ask
they would
for?
do it several times.
Yes.
So good. It's
It's like Star Wars. They just keep recycling the same story.
because it worked the first time.
But-
I made a shit ton of money.
Motherfuckers like me will keep on buying it.
Yep.
they
So-
know their audience well.
Recently, I played through Link to the Past with my little one. Excuse me, with me, and she was hooked, and to the point where, and Marielle can verify, she would just walk around singing the Zelda main theme,
That's fantastic.
and it's just like, yeah, girl, get it, yeah, dun, dun, so good. But I mean, Link to the Past broke a lot of ground, a lot of barriers, and to the point where even it's so good as it was, and then with the SNES Classic remaster, it looked even better. And then when they put it, I don't know if you guys played it on the GBA when it came on Game Boy Advance, but they added the first iteration of Four Swords to it.
Yep.
Because the game was so good, they're like, we can do something with code on this and make a multiplayer, and that spawned a whole other fucking thing.
Yeah.
So, Link to the Past. The whole reason we have Ocarina, aka one of the greatest games ever made.
The greatest
one
game
one
ever.
of
Period. Yeah.
Noah.
Easy.
One of.
It's the. I'm trying to be political.
I mean, that's
It's the
a
greatest
very
fucking game.
that's a massive statement.
Is it my favorite game? No.
I stand by it.
But I say,
I
I do
believe
too.
you.
we said this drunkenly. in our Nintendo 64 episode available in the archives that I believe that Mario 64 is the Citizen Kane of video games. It did it invent cinema? No. Right? Did it invent cinema? No, but it perfected it in a way that like had never been done before. But if Mario 64 is the Citizen Kane of games, Ocarina of Time is the fucking Godfather. And it's like, yeah, every other game that comes after this will be compared to this.
Do you know who on our show has never seen The Godfather? David.
I think we know the answer to that.
David.
What a fucking slice.
So he has no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
You know what?
Took his hat down.
Fuck you. First off,
Don't come at my list, man. Come on.
I just can't. I did come at your list pretty hard. And there's good reason why I did, Jeff. There's good reason why I did. But I'm not into fucking mafia movies. I'm just mafia anything like that genre doesn't appeal to me. So it is very fucking difficult for me to sit down and dedicate, the 3.5 hours that I need to dedicate to watch the first one and then get to the second one.
You don't have to watch the second one. Just watch the first one.
Every time it's fucking on TV,
it's
every time it's on TV, it's like 2 hours into it. I don't want to start watching it in the middle of it. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a point to go back and do it. And I could do that, or I could go back and like watch, fucking Captain America Winter Soldier again, and I end up just kind of doing that.
This is the exact same reason why Martin Scorsese takes shit
Yeah,
on comic book
literally.
movies. Literally, he's like you're like, oh, why would I watch The Godfather when I can watch Captain America 2 again?
Yeah, that's America's ass.
you.
I'll watch that.
That's America's ass.
I'm gonna.
Nobody's ever looked at Robert De Niro and said he's got America's ass. Or
I'm not
fucking
gonna.
Marlon Brando.
I'm not the one to pass significant judgment on movie interests typically. So I'm not going to tell you, and I've lived with you. I know. You love cinema, and I know you do. But if nothing else, you may never watch one of the greatest films ever made.
Ever made.
I mean, and
listen,
look, brother, hold on.
All
right. Hold up. Wait a minute.
Hold up. Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And that's cool. Look, you can live the rest of your life having missed out on that experience, and that shame on you, good for you, whatever. That's between you and your God. However, fucking buy it at least. Own own the movies. You own so many, you might as well own one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah,
but you should probably watch it.
Yeah, you should
You
definitely
probably do, don't you?
I do.
Wait a minute, bitch.
That's even worse.
Wait a minute. You just had the nerve to say, well, it's on TV, and it's already... No, you... Just sit down and watch it.
It is on the fucking shelf. My parents got it for me for Christmas one year, so I actually
and you
own all
went,
three of them.
one of the greatest movies of all time. I'm not watching that shit. Where's Winter Soldier?
Oh my god!
Fantastic.
Oh my god!
I take back what I said, Dave. I judge you.
I did finally watch Goodfellas. So I did finally get a chance to watch that. So I finally got that off the fucking list.
Finally got the
Dave,
chance.
we spent all this time building an audience for this fucking show.
I just
and you just fucking spit in their mouth by saying, I don't want to... I own The Godfather. You lied to everybody. And then you came back and said, oh yeah, I own it, but I won't fucking watch it.
No.
And I just watched it.
No. I didn't lie. I never said I didn't fucking own it. I said every time it's on TV, when I'm flipping through channels, it's 2 hours in. Do you know how much Noah Brown? Fucking look in this camera right now. Thank you. Right.
Okay, here we go. It's getting real now.
Do you know how much fucking effort it takes to get off the couch and walk into the dining room and go to the shelf of DVDs and actually pull the DVD out and walk back over to the TV and then open the DVD Blu-ray player and put the disc in.
You forgot the part where it's still wrapped in plastic and you have to open it with your teeth.
I just listed. Nobody has that kind of fucking time. You don't have that. You're a father. You're a fucking father. You do not have that time. Don't even tell me you do.
Hold that thought.
You are not a father, so you do have that time.
Hold that thought for a second, Mac. Mac, are you really trying to tell me about the effort it takes to pull out? Is that what you're trying to say, to pull something out? Well, let me tell you right now.
I didn't realize I was revealing that much of myself to our audience.
I respect that in a way, but listen.
Who's got time for that?
You aren't here. So from all the way from southwestern Pennsylvania to there in Florida, for someone who not only hasn't seen The Godfather, but has blatantly said they won't take the time to watch what many consider the perfect movie, I have but one gentle thing to say to you. Right, he's pulling his pants off. He's taking his pants off just so I can say, fuck you! All the way there. I hope that was good. It's the perfect movie.
That was your first. I apologize.
It felt good. It felt good.
Yeah. So we're going from we're going to segue. Fuck you, Dave. We're going to segue from the number one movie to our number one 16-bit games on our list.
Let's get back on track because I feel like we're going
done.
along here.
We're not going on a full Bad Boys 2 Return of the Jedi.
I'm making a point to not bring up Bad Boys.
Can I make
we're getting close.
How many times I've actually seen Bad Boy 2 and not watched The Godfather? Can I just go ahead and point that out right now, Jones?
Listen,
Please
Just wrap your
you're
head around
officially
that
not on
one.
the show anymore because we're, like I can't even now with you.
I thought it, but I wasn't going to pull the trigger. Doug's like, oh no, fuck you, you're fired.
You're fired. But anyhow, because like I said, I feel like we're going long on this episode here. Let's get back on track, and I'll make this as concise.
Before
as
we do,
Yeah.
I just want to take this one moment.
Yes.
Here in a 16-bit game, I would just like to say particularly, fuck you to two particular games that I know do not appear in any of our lists, and if they do on my wife's list, well, then she can take this straight to her god. Number one, fuck you, Altered Beast. All right?
That game could burn in hell.
The game will burn in hell.
Justified and fair.
Yes. And now the second one will be Divisive Praise. And I'm sorry for anyone I alienate about this, but I want to say fuck you to Echo the Dolphin.
Not a great game.
It was
what it
a
was.
thing. It was a thing.
It was a thing.
It tried.
Yeah.
I feel
tried really hard.
In Velvet, pictures of dolphins were very big in 1992.
Yes.
Didn't get it either way. So I just want to say, I send a bigger fuck you to Altered Beast,
Oh my
but
God.
still a standard fuck you.
Well, no,
Echo.
think about it. We had fucking Flipper, just hot off a Flipper, right?
Yeah.
The Dolphin, Ace Ventura, fucking everywhere, right?
Snowflake.
So we have to have Echo the Dolphin, right? That game, taking the speed engine of Sonic the Hedgehog and going, let's just make it a fucking dolphin. No.
Yeah,
We're reading. A lot of reading.
I don't know if I don't know, as a child, as a small human being, before I had the ability to really critique things, like really be critical about my thoughts on media, I knew within the first minute and a half of Altered Beast that it was a pile of shit.
Oh.
Like, you knew, like everybody knew. You couldn't go, oh, this game's awesome. No, this game, but your parents rented it, and it's either that or Sonic. I'm just gonna play fucking Sonic. That's it.
Exactly.
I'm just turning that off, taking that back out, putting Sonic back in. That game was terrible. But back to the subject at hand.
Here we are. Sorry, I just wanted to say fuck
I
you to Altered
appreciate
Beast
it.
one last time.
So again, not the greatest game ever made, but it's the greatest game I ever played. General Chaos is such a special experience. And if anybody here has never played General Chaos, look, you may never get a chance to play it. Just go watch like a 10-minute review of the game.
That's a sleeper hit for
It
sure.
is so like ahead of its time for like a Sega Genesis game. And for me as a little kid, and real quick story time with how my love affair with it, I kept seeing it at Best Video, which was the rental place on Penn Avenue in Wilkinsburg. And I would see it, but I wouldn't rent it. I'd go rent something else. Altered Beast. Make that mistake once. And like, I would see it, and then I'd go rent something else that came out. And I kept going like, that looks like it could be kind of interesting. Because the cartridge had the little yellow thing on it. And not every cartridge had that
A little
weird
EA. It was
EA
EA.
thing.
Yeah, it was the
Yeah,
EA
EA had
tab.
that.
And I kept going, one of these days, I'll rent it. And then one day I was like, oh, we're going to rent it. We went there and it wasn't there. It was never there again. And then I got it for my birthday. Because I had asked about it. And my mom didn't handle any of the gaming.
Your dad just
But my
knew
dad
it.
was like,
He's like, I'm
"All right."
gonna find this.
And Lord
Yeah.
knows how much he paid for it. It's probably like $60 for that game. And he bought it. And I'm so glad he did. Because it's like a real-time strategy war simulation game. But it was cartoony and over the top, and all the little squadrons had like character to them.
It is a part of the newly released for the Xbox One and Switch Genesis Classics.
because of the double-sided
really?
poster.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's on there with 50 other games.
Okay.
So you guys play General Chaos, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Rail, did you play General
I
Chaos?
did not.
Matt, did you play General Chaos?
This is another one of those games that I had not heard of until we started talking about this episode.
What did you think of it when you looked that up? What did you think of it?
I mean, it looks really interesting. I mean, I look forward to, again, giving it a gameplay. I like now, of course, Noah, you're pointing out that it's on the Genesis Classics and everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's something about that game that it was so simple. There really was nothing to it. But the controls were pretty complex,
Yes.
right? Like you had to plan your squadron around, and there was like the bomber, the grenadier, the commando, or the gunner rather, and you could play with other people. It was the first game that I remember that if you had the split thing, the multiplayer split adapter, you could play 4 people, and that was crazy for Sega Genesis at the time.
Because really, there was sports games at that time. We're the only other games to use that on the Genesis. Because the 64, the SNES, you could buy the thing. It was much more common. But on the Genesis, it was basically sports games only.
I put, and I'm just gonna end it here. The love letter to this game is that I put hours and hours and hours into that one game because there was real replay value to it. Because you could pick different combinations of your squadron, or you could be crazy and just do the commando. And commando was different because you had to control individual people. It's supposed to click here, you go here, click here, you go here. It was like you could strategize, you could flank, and you could. And the best part is you get into a fist fight, and then you do the if you punched or kicked too many times in a row, dude just turn on and shoot you. I love that. It had character to it. Again, all my games on my list had a vibe.
It reminded me a lot of Worms 3D before Worms.
It was that and
It's the same kind of vibe
Yes.
and gameplay.
Worms 3D mixed with Red Alert, like the first Command & Conquer.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Jones, you talk about, Commando and everything. I've been Commando this entire episode.
Nice.
Well, I appreciate the honesty.
Segueing it back to
But
the
yeah,
dick. I appreciate it.
But yeah, so
Very nice.
that is without question my favorite 16-bit game of all time.
Can I tell you a fun story about General Chaos?
Yes, please.
True story. So, and Mario knows this place, but on McNeely Avenue, there is this place called Showtime Video.
Yep.
And my father used to take us there to rent our video games, and he would go in the back and rent porn.
Like all fathers do.
And I'm going to say this to my father, listener of this show, Dan, calling you out live on the internet. And I rented
Sorry, Ron.
Yeah. What's up, Dad?
Hey.
I rented General
Ron, I'm not
Chaos.
sorry. You knew what
No.
you did. You know what you raised.
The Lord knows what you did.
Like I said, it's between him and his God.
Right?
I like that we've never said that phrase the entire 47 run of the show, or 47 episode run of the show, and now we've said it 15 times.
That's going to be the new T-shirt.
Well, that is. I'll be honest with you, that is a Herb Jones Jr. saying. That is my dad saying. He used to say that all the time when I was growing up. When he would
give your
refer
dad
to
20% of
other
the T-shirt
people.
I
sales.
love that.
Yeah, he would just about people he didn't like or
Respect.
something they did. He didn't like. That's between him and his God. Oh well. And I just all right, pops, but I get it now.
You get it.
I
When you were a
get it
kid,
now.
you're like, that's a weird thing to say.
It is,
now
but
you're
I
like,
get
I'm
it
going to say
now.
that all the time.
I fucking love that
I'm
saying.
owning that shit.
Jones, did you ever just sit there like your third grade teacher and she goes, Herb, you got like an 83% on this exam, this quiz, and you look at her and go, that's between you and your God.
That'd be amazing. No, I
Great.
PTA conferences, man. That would have been great.
Anyway, Showtime Video.
Yeah.
Showtime Video, my dad, porn. That's where he would go to rent porn. So at the cover, him renting porn, he would get us video games. And I got General Chaos, and it just looked because the cover was so cool, right? And I got it, but it was just a little bit advanced for me to be able to understand the guys. So I had my dad. I asked him to help me figure it out and play it, and to the point where I think this was like my dad's love affair with the games, because my dad loved Command & Conquer, Tiberian Sun, Red Alert 2, and it all came back to General Chaos because I asked him to play it for me, and I ended up watching him play General Chaos.
It's a fun game to watch people
Yeah,
play.
he didn't even watch the porn. He just played the game all week.
First of all, that's my dad. He watched that porn. He got his full $1.99 out of that money.
Noah, was there ever a time, Noah, where you rented General Chaos and then your dad also went to the back room and rented General Chaos? But
Could have
just
been.
It was two very different versions of the same
Backdoor
game title.
Chaos.
I love how
Remember that at your next family dinner, Mario.
when we go to Buffalo Wild Wings next week, you're going to have to really talk about this.
So let's talk about General Chaos.
So
about
Ron, do you remember Showtime's video?
Don't think I'll be doing that.
That'd be hilarious.
You're never gonna eat with my dad again. No, that's fun.
But okay, so
Yeah, you're number one, General Chaos.
choice.
Good call,
Yes, that is my jam.
honey, darling.
This is the moment.
This is about you've come onto this show. This is by really everybody's better judgment, and now here you are. Not for what you would bring, but what I would do to you on here, consensually, of course. You've
Of course.
consented. This already
I feel like
recording.
it's going to be anticlimactic.
No.
Okay, so my
But
number
build it up
one.
then. Come on,
It's not
Yeah,
really.
You gotta sell it. You gotta sell it.
You wait
Yeah,
for it.
talk. You started with Central
What if
Seahorse.
she
You gotta
says
bring it
Ultra
home.
Beast?
So let's
Echo
Just
the
get up and
dolphin.
go home.
Echo the
let's
dolphin.
let's take the Dave approach, right? So first of all, go off on a weird story that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about.
So
Talk about your brother.
So I rented the game, and then I rented the game again, and then I re-rented the game again, and I kept renting it. I wouldn't stop renting it, and it was around Christmas, and my brother said, "Why don't you just take the game back? Stop renting it." I said, "No, I'm going to re-rent it," and he said, Maybe I got it for you for Christmas." I'm like, okay, fine. I'll re-rent it till Christmas, because I needed to have it. I had to play it all the time, and it was Mario Kart. So
There you go.
There it is.
anticlimactic, but I played it all the
That's
time.
You
That's a
just
good story.
podcasted.
Yeah.
Look at you
Yeah.
now.
Was
a good
Mario
story.
It
Kart
has a
the
similar
first
story with
Mario
Conker's Bad
game
Fur
that
Day?
brought together
Okay.
Where I just kept
characters from other
re-renting it
shows?
over and over again. And me and Melissa,
Yes.
we would go to Toys R Us and read the book because we would get stuck and we're like, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Like we were on spring break in fucking Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And so we would go to Toys R Us. We would look in the game guide because they used to have those at Toys R Us and we weren't going to fucking pay for it. And then we would go back and we would play it. And then when it was time to renew the game, we would re-rent it again and we just kept playing through it.
For the money you spent renting it, you probably
Oh,
could
yeah,
have bought it
absolutely.
several
Definitely.
times. Yeah,
Definitely.
but
But it makes a better story,
It's a way better
for
story.
sure.
So now's the time to ask everyone around. Doesn't matter if it's the original Mario Kart, but we'll let you expand it on the Mario 64. Who's your main?
Toad. Always
Toad.
Toad. Always
You're a Toad
Toad.
person. She owns a Toad hat, everybody.
I do
So
own
she
a
wears
Toad
the hat. So, Jones, who's your Mario Kart main?
Yoshi.
Nice, nice. Jafar.
Baby Mario.
Nice, nice. Mac, who's your Mario Kart main?
That is very pedophilic of you there, Jeffrey. Little baby Mario action there. It's a little weird. That's but fine. Koopa Troopa.
He's not making out with his Mario character. He's letting it drive a car. Is that irresponsible parenting? Yes. Is it against all motor laws? Yes. But he ain't fucking it. Wait a minute. Jeff, are you fucking it?
I'm fucking everybody else.
With baby
Because I
Mario.
own that shit.
Oh.
You want a red shell? You want a blue shell? You
So
want a
who,
green
so
shell?
who
I
did you
give it to
say, Mac?
I mean, I don't even want to
Koopa
follow
Troopa.
after all this. Koopa Troopa.
So that's me too. I'm a Koopa Troopa guy as well.
Yeah.
Koopa Troopa, and then in the more modern games, Lakitu is.
I don't even know what that is.
Lakitu's the dude in
With
the
the
cloud
cloud, yeah.
that throws the
Oh,
thing.
that's what
And
its
then in
name
Mario
is.
64, he's the camera.
I've never heard it said like that before, but I knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
what else could it be?
You could have fooled me. All right. There we
So
go.
that is
Good.
him.
Wackatoo?
Lakitu. With
Lakitu.
L.
Lakitu.
L as in labia, both minora and majora.
Okay.
Labia. Lakitu.
Like Majora's Mask.
luscious.
Marielle,
Loving.
do the words "till death
Long-lasting.
do you part"? Are you hearing that a lot more as we go through this podcast?
What's your life insurance policy? Like?
Well, I have maintained for years that if I die under mysterious circumstances, you are to question in order Marielle and Dick Cheney. That's it. That's the only two.
my God.
And if both have an alibi, then it was just maybe aliens. I don't know.
Well, I gotta say that was a solid choice. You know,
Good choice.
if that's your jam, that's your number one. That's your number one.
I went through time trials, and I had a notebook of every character and the fastest possible time each character could get in a time trial.
That's pretty cool. That's
commitment.
That's I was gonna say that's commitment.
Bowser's the fastest. If you were wondering.
In case anybody was
In case
wondering,
anyone was
The
wondering.
biggest, slowest, and fastest.
Yes.
makes total sense.
Japan. What
Video games.
are you gonna do? This whole show, the whole name of the show, is based off of a Mario reference too. So, when Doc called me,
Well, we're holding off on that.
yeah, we'll
Reveal.
talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Someday we'll get there.
Speaking of Mario,
Yeah.
I know it's basic, and I too was lucky enough to have both the Genesis and the SNES, and my dad had a TurboGrafx 16 just because he wanted to play the Bonk games. But my number one all-time 16-bit game, it is a leaps and bounds ahead of number two, Comic Zone. because of the feels. It's Super Mario World. Easily, she can verify. I will sit and I will play, and I'll get wobbly jawed playing Super Mario World just because it was, from a game standpoint, it's still so beautiful. It's so pretty. Every iteration, even in the classic cartridge, the music, the play is Yoshi, the multiplayer mode, the level design is great, the Star World, the secrets in there, the replayability. It's an excellent game. But also on a personal thing, and I never like getting real, so I'm going to keep it short. When my parents divorced, in order to make life easier on me, my Nana and my Uncle Ron bought me a Super Nintendo. And the game it came with was the Super Mario World. So I played that game alone in my room.
That was your escape.
That was it. Me and Drew played Super Mario World for hours. And it was the very first game I ever, by myself, beat every single moment of every single possibility of it, to the point where I would even and you're supposed to be timid, intimidated by Bowser's Castle. That music from Bowser's Castle gets me fucking jacked.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't care. And my mom would be screaming in the other room, I don't care. Because it's Super Mario World. And nothing could hurt you.
That's
in
Noah's
Super Mario.
World.
That's
Yeah.
Noah's World. So
That's really cool, man.
So Super Mario World all time, number one, without a shadow of a doubt, to this day. Because sometimes Marielle and her brother and Lily will sit around and they'll play classic games. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. You guys play that. And you want to play? I'm like, no, I do like watching. But if they're like, Super Mario World comes on, and someone's like, you want to play? I'm like, oh, uh-huh. Oh, yeah, I want to play.
Yeah.
Move the fuck over.
And that, a lot of people shit on gaming in the world. And there's a certain level of, sometimes in people's lives, gaming has a very meaningful and powerful impact on people. Because when your parents weren't there for you, fucking Mario was
there.
Right?
He was like,
And so
woohoo!
that deserves to be at the top of your list. So
Yeah, agreed.
Respect the Super Mario World. Now respect to all the way down
Tampa!
in Tampa, Florida. One of these days, we have to get your Dave Penzer out.
Oh, you ain't ready.
No, that's the
I got
WCW
an
announcer.
announcer voice like you wouldn't believe.
But let's get it down here to Tampa, Florida with Mac with his number one draft pick, 16-bit.
So the reason why I was so angry at Jeff, everybody, just a few moments ago, I think, if you're
is it
paying
because I'm
attention
Dutch?
to read
It's
between the
usually
lines-
because I'm Dutch.
It's because you're
Usually.
fucking
Guys, I've seen The Legend of Zelda violate Jeff in a way that to any person would be clear violation. But Jeff spread those cheeks willingly for Link to grab that Master Sword and blow his Triforce all over the small of Jeff's back.
He
We've all
relaxed.
seen it.
Where people would tense up, he relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then at the end, when it happens, Jeff just starts doing the Legend of Zelda theme. But for me, it is the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. That's my number one.
Man.
That game, when you go from the first Zelda game to Link, side scroller, we get to Super Nintendo, and how the Super Nintendo just blew that world wide open.
Oh.
The possibilities. You go through, you play the game, you get the 3 medallions, you go, you fight the wizard, and all of a fucking sudden, you realize you're only halfway through the game. There was no internet. Nobody was spoiling shit for you at this point in time. And if you got that game early, nobody was telling you what was going to happen. And then you go to a fucking dark world, and you have an entire new version of the game you got to play and go all the way through. And things
That's
that
a
you
funny
did in
story.
one is going to impact what you do in the other. And just that game is just so good. And, it expands the world, expands mythology. It's a fantastic game. I love it. Nothing else I can really say about it. So, Jeff, I want to say, Jeff, look here, buddy. Hey, what's up, Jeff? How you doing, baby?
What's up, Dave?
Look, you doing good, man? Yeah, you look good. I want to say I'm sorry. I got a little angry there earlier. All right, I still love you. I got you a velvet robe. I'm bringing it back for you.
You still good for that 3-way with Zelda when you get back?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
Good.
Of course.
I'll wear
The Legend of
Ganon.
Zelda, a cup to the past.
Listen, I'm gonna wear the Ganon nose because I know how Zelda likes it. But I just got a little angry because I couldn't believe that wasn't your number one. And we'll transition here because now that I know that Zelda was your number. What was your number one, Jeff?
My number one. So I started my list with an RPG from Square, and I'm going to finish my list with an RPG from Square. My number one 16-bit game of all time is Chrono Trigger.
Gotta be.
Nice.
Yes.
That's the only RPG that I
So
liked.
Chrono Trigger came out in 1995. In 1994, Nintendo created a column in Nintendo Power called the Epic Center, which was 100% focused on RPG games. Now, some of us, like Dave, don't like RPG games, and it wasn't a big draw. But they started hyping this game called Chrono Trigger a year before the game actually came out,
Which is unheard of.
and
Unheard of.
so they were building up this hype train once a month because there was no internet. It was like every month I get Nintendo Power, I'm going to read through it. And they just kept hyping this fucking game. And then this game came out. And let me tell you, this game fucking came out swinging. One of the greatest RPG games ever.
I would say top 10 games ever made.
Maybe second to Final Fantasy VII, the original. And maybe Kingdom Hearts. But it was such a great game, from the design, from the gameplay, to the music, to the level design, to just the creativeness of it, because you basically span like thousands of years as you're going through the game, and you see all these different unique levels and time periods. And there were the replayability. There were like 12 different endings depending on how you played through it. The character design was fantastic. The character designer was actually the main artist from Dragon Ball Z, so you see some correlations to the style of what Chrono looks like compared to what Goku looks like. But hands down, one of the greatest Super Nintendo games and the greatest RPG of all time, Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger was incredible. Incredible. To the point where that is still a flex for people. They're like, yeah, oh, that's great. You know, Final Fantasy 15 was okay, and I appreciate this, and Jupiter Ascending, you know, all that stuff, but it's still not Chrono Trigger. And, like, normally those people are like, fuck you. But, like you're right, though.
I mean,
Right.
Chrono Trigger, right?
Time-traveling RPG, it's an idea that works. And it works because two games, your number one and your number two, fucking nailed it.
The music in that game too.
Oh,
It's so good. When you hear those songs, like
Uh-huh.
even now, it just takes you right back.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's amazing what gaming was doing for us back then. You know,
So
I think
good.
you can still get the feels from it now.
To this day.
Yeah.
Because they were well made. And it was just, and not to disrespect the 8-bit era, but the technology advanced just enough to be able to fill in the holes in your imagination enough to where it's stuck with you.
That makes
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's so many games we didn't even get to mention. So many games. Vector Man, Theme Park, NHL 94. And more.
And more.
At least one more.
Many
And-
more.
You know, the thing about you know, I kind of looking back on this podcast now and hearing everything we've talked about, there's a lot of themes that we all have, right? You know, they're in 16-bit games, you didn't sell them when you're done playing them. They had massive replayability. Every one of us talked about how we played it with our family. You know, we all played those games in the same room with our brother or our sister. We have those connections. You know, those connections, I think, are as rooted in the gameplay as the gameplay itself. It's just, you know, the memories we have of, you know, the fun times and maybe the not so fun times and the laughs and the craziness playing those games. And, you know, kids, everything was in the game. You didn't have to go fucking buy extra shit.
And no
You
patches.
didn't have to worry about
no
you know,
DLC,
updates
no
and, you know, expanded levels and power-ups and shit you had to buy. It was just all right there. You know? It was a simpler time in gaming. Some may say a better time. But
In a lot of
yeah,
ways.
it's interesting about how those themes all kind of tie in for all of us.
Well, there is no better time than here and now with nothing good, except maybe next week. We got a lot on the docket moving forward. Next week, we got a really interesting subject coming up. Movies based on video games.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
What's the highs? What's the lows? There's a lot of lows.
It's
There's very
mostly
little in
lows.
between.
Yeah.
No,
it's
there really
mostly
Are
isn't.
there highs?
Yes.
There are, and we're going to talk about them.
Some.
Some might be highs. I don't know how high. We
Not particularly high.
No, but I mean, compared to the lows, Oh, here's the
pretty
thing.
high. Yeah.
We're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about fighting games. I'm sure we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, Super Mario.
That's unfortunate.
We're going to be talking about Silent Hill and the Razor Blade Vagina. There's going to be a lot of stuff there. But speaking of Razor Blade Vagina, Mariel, thank you for joining us on today's show.
It's a weird segue.
It is a perfect segue.
Strange
Oh my God.
thing to
Thank
say.
you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I
It has
appreciate-
been
I
a
appreciate
pleasure.
being here.
Yes.
Thank
For
you.
you.
Did you
joining
now?
us.
Did you? I have a couple of follow-up questions here.
Oh boy.
Did you
Your
enjoy
exit interview.
Yes. Did you enjoy your time with us?
Of course.
You
It's
did.
a great time. Yes.
Did you? Is this your? Now this is your. We've broken your podcast, Jerry.
Yes.
You've been in a room with 3 guys where they broke your podcast, Jerry. Would you do it again?
And one on the internet.
Yeah. Sure.
That's
We would
good.
love to have you
Sure.
back again.
That would be great.
Fantastic. Are you going to continue to let me do this podcast?
Time will tell.
You make
fair.
no promises.
We will carry on the legacy without you, Mr. Brown.
Ah, so gone but not forgotten. just shout dick randomly into there and make inappropriate comments. But we want you.
I can
come back.
do the intro to the Nothing Good when Noah's not
You
here.
fuck you.
We
Who
have
is this?
20
Dave, you
minutes.
break it up. Dave, you're breaking up for losing
Yeah, we don't have 20 minutes for an intro
I'll just
every
go
week.
ahead and go. I'll just go ahead and go puns this week on Nothing Good.
Buds, my brother once had a second channel in his room. But anyway, we hope that you come back this next week and each and every week, including you, honey. At least you better listen to the episode you're on.
You really should.
Yeah,
I don't like to listen to
We
myself.
need to
I
know.
Neither do
probably
I, which is why I
won't.
don't listen.
We do need to.
My
you know-
plan has been to get far enough in episodes where I don't remember what we talked about. Does that
a
make
good idea.
sense?
That happens way
Yeah, it's
shorter
good.
for me than I'm sure it does for you. So, like, oh, shit, what
Like
do I
a
do?
goldfish.
This is-
It's like, it's gone.
I'll
Yeah.
wait until we get to about 100, and then I'm going to start listening.
So next year?
Good idea.
Okay, well, way to go. That's a big build-up. No pressure. And no pressure for you, the sweet, succulent listener. Come on back next week. It's Video Game Movies as we move ever closer to the impending episode 50 and Bad Boys 2.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What's all over when we come for you?
We'll see you next week, right here